Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 on Wattpad. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Tunnel 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲. Abandoned cave entrance. Late afternoon, the jagged rock arch sagged under centuries of erosion, its surface mottled with moss and lichen. Faint dust motes drifted in the slanted S of sunlight piercing the yawning cave mouth. A distant drip echoed, as if the tunnel itself were weeping for the trains it had long since lost. Izuku Midoriya tightened his grip on the flashlight, its beam trembling in the gathering gloom. 12 years old, quirkless and determined, he stepped into the darkness. I am Izuku Midoriya. My greatest dream is to stand where all might stands, to smile and save the world. He paused, eyes tracing the broken wooden chairs and shattered tables strewn like fallen soldiers. Moss crawled over splintered legs, vines draped overhead like funeral wreaths. Each fragment of ruin whispered of hopes abandoned. But when I turned 4, I learned I was quirkless. Every test, every disappointment, everyone told me to give up. Flashback, Midoriya home. Evening, his mother knelt before him, her eyes glistening under the soft glow of the living room lamp. Behind them, framed family photos of smiling children felt like cruel taunts. Mother, I'm sorry, honey. I wish I could give you a quirk. Young Izuku's voice trembled as he asked, Young Izuku, do you think I can still be a hero? His mother reached out but could find no answer. The weight of her silence pressed down on him. Cave, back 2. Izuku's jaw clenched. A memory of another failure stabbed at him, the day he tried to help a quirkless classmate and ended worse for the effort. Not everyone is born the same. Some start ahead, some fall behind. For 12 years, I've been trailing. He pressed on until vines and collapsed masonry blocked the way. Through a tangle of greenery, a golden sliver of light beckoned. Overgrown castle ruins, dusk stone towers lay half swallowed by ivy, cracked gargoyles glared skyward. Izuku set down his backpack, paused to catch his breath, and returned the flashlight to his belt. A soft whine cut through the silence. Izuku's heart jolted. Beneath a web of thorny vines, a stray dog struggled to free itself. Its eyes, wide with fear, met his. Izuku softly, I'm here. I'll help you. The dog growled, and the vines constricted further. Ignoring his own fear, Izuku knelt and unzipped his pack. Inside lay the only tool he carried, a small pair of folding scissors. Izuku, gentle, easy. Just trust me. Blade meeting vine, he snipped free each trapped limb. When the last thorn fell, the dog sprang up and bolted, snarling once, then racing into the thicket. Izuku sank to one knee, relief washing over him. Izuku, maybe I can be a hero. He leaned against the vine-clad wall. The stones gave way, and he tumbled through a hidden collapse. Hidden chamber, continuous dizzily, Izuku landed on cold stone steps. He scrambled upright, sweeping his flashlight across a vast chamber. Cobwebs draped like ancient tapestries, dust danced in the beam. His foot struck a marble pedestal. He knelt and brushed away motes, revealing carved Mandarin characters, to the beloved husband and father, Shang-Chi, may your spirit guide the worthy. A surge of wonder tightened his chest. He looked up at the statue of a warrior, face serene, sword reversed in peace. At the statue's base rested a weathered box, its lid bearing 10 interlocking rings. They glowed faintly, warm, insistent. Izuku's pulse thundered as he lifted the box. Every fiber of his being urged him to open it, to unlock its promise. He tried the lid, but it held fast. Izuku whispered, "What are you hiding?" Carefully, he stowed the box in his backpack. The air in the chamber felt charged, alive with secrets long buried. He retraced his ascent, mindful of the loose stones beneath his feet. At the surface, the sky had deepened to bruised purples. Forest clearing. Dusk back in the overgrown courtyard, the stray dog reappeared. This time it approached tentatively, tail wagging. Izuku knelt and extended a hand. The dog sniffed, then leaned in, eyes bright with trust. "Izuku, you came back." He smiled despite himself. "Mom always said I needed a friend." He patted the dog's head. "I'll call you Yondu." Yondu barked once, as if in agreement. Izuku slung his backpack over his shoulder and reached for Yondu's collar. Together, they stepped into the cave's gloom. "That day I found the box. And made a friend. Nothing would ever be the same." As they vanished into the dark, the 10 rings pulsed softly within the closed box, waiting to awaken a new hero. The evening sky was painted in bruised purples as Izuku Midoriya stepped through the door of his modest apartment. Yondu, his newly adopted stray, cradled gently in his arms. Rain clouds drifted overhead, promising storms, but inside, the warmth of home beckoned. His mother, Izuku Midoriya, looked up from the tiny kitchenette, concern knitting her brow. Izuku frowning. "Izuku, why is there a dog in my living room?" Izuku set Yondu down carefully. The dog's white and red mottled coat, so strikingly patterned, and its bright yellow eyes locked onto Izuku's in silent appeal. Izuku pleading, "Mom, please. I found him injured in the ruins. He needed help. Could we keep him?" Yondu limped forward, pressing his head into Izuku's hand. Izuku sighed, crossing her arms. "Izuku, you know the building rules, no pets?" Izuku's heart thumped. "I'll take full responsibility. Feeding, walking, cleaning, everything." Yondu let out a soft whine, tail wagging. Izuku's stern expression softened. Izuku exhaling, "All right. One condition. He stays in your room from now on. Clean up after him." Izuku grinning, "Thank you, Mum. You won't regret it." Later that night, dinner had come and gone. Izuku's homemade miso soup and rice for herself, and a bowl of kibble for Yondu. Izuku cleared the table swiftly, then retreated to his room. Yondu curled up at the edge of the bed, eyes half closed. Izuku's gaze flicked to his desk, where the battered box from the ruin, and his open backpack, waited. A hammer lay beside them, its metal head catching the moonlight. He couldn't wait any longer. Setting his homework aside, Izuku retrieved the hammer. He raised it above the box and brought it down with all his strength. The lid splintered. Thunk. The hammer struck again, and with a final snap the lid flew open. 10 rings spilled out, each heavy, each etched with ancient glyphs. They clunked against the desk and slid onto the floor in a metallic cascade. Yondu's ears perked. The dog bounded forward, sniffing curiously. Before Izuku could intervene, Yondu seized one of the larger rings in his mouth. With a shake, he dropped it into Izuku's waiting palm, and then, as though drawn by a magnetic pull, the ring shot along Izuku's arm. It expanded, then contracted, settling perfectly on his forearm. Izuku staggered back. 4 more rings whirred through the air to join the first on his right arm. The remaining 5 aligned themselves on his left. Power surged through his veins. Muscles tingled. A warmth spread beneath his skin. Yondu barked in delight, tail sweeping the floor. Suddenly, the bedroom door swung open. Izuku worried, "Izuku. I heard banging. And Yondu barking. Are you all right?" Izuku glanced down at his forearms, now ring-encircled in glowing metal. Izuku calmly, "I'm okay, Mom. Everything's under control." Izuku hesitant, "You look different." Izuku forcing a smile, "Just tired. Good night." She lingered a moment longer, then closed the door. Izuku sank onto his bed, rings cold yet humming with latent energy. He tried to pry them off, no movement. On his desk lay a thick parchment that had slipped from the box. He picked it up with trembling hands and unfolded it. The writing filled the page. To the worthy bearer of the 10 rings, these artifacts, forged in the heart of ancient power, grant abilities far beyond the ken of mortals. They bond to one who is pure of heart and unwavering in purpose. Superhuman strength and durability, the bearer can lift/exert forces incomprehensible to normal humans. Bones, metals, and stone alike bend before these rings. Accelerated speed and agility, reaction times and movement speed are enhanced to blinding levels. The body now moves with uncanny grace and precision. Near invulnerability and longevity, the bearer heals from wounds at an accelerated rate. Aging slows dramatically, time itself yields to their presence. Regenerative healing, even injuries mend over days, not weeks. Diseases, toxins, and curses are purged by the ring's aura. Mystical senses and precognition, the rings whisper warnings before danger strikes. Visions of possible futures guide the bearer's path. Energy projection and constructs, the bearer can unleash pulses of pure energy. Shields, weapons, or barriers manifest at will, limited only by imagination. Spatial manipulation and limited teleportation portals between 2 points may be forged, allowing instantaneous travel across short distances. Elemental harmony, through focused will, the bearer may influence elemental forces. Fire, water, earth, and air respond to their command. Mental fortitude and clarity, the rings shield the mind from intrusion and calm tumultuous thoughts, granting unwavering focus. Legacy of leadership, beyond power, the rings inspire loyalty, courage, and righteousness in allies, and instill awe in those who witness true heroism. Use these gifts wisely. Let your heart be your guide. By your actions, test the purity of your spirit. Let no darkness claim your soul. Shang-Chi, keeper of the 10 rings, Izuku's breath caught. He read and reread each line, feeling the weight of every promise and every warning. Immortality, he whispered, eyes wide. Healing, elemental control. Teleportation, a whirl of emotions swirled inside him. Exhilaration at the endless possibilities, fear of unworthy ambitions, awe at the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. He looked down at Yondu, still perched at the foot of the bed. The dog's bright eyes shone with trust. Tears blurred Izuku's vision. He knelt and hugged Yondu close. I'll protect people. I'll save lives. I swear I will never let this power corrupt me. Yondu liked his cheek in seeming approval. Izuku placed the parchment gently on his desk, beside the rings that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. He drew a steadying breath. Tomorrow our true journey begins. With that vow echoing in his heart, Izuku lay back, the whispers of the 10 rings lulling him into a sleep filled with dreams of heroism yet to come. Morning came bleeding across the sky in pale pink and gold. Izuku Midoriya awoke before sunrise, the quiet murmur of Yondu's breathing at the foot of his bed the only sound in the stillness. Outside, the world was hushed, except for the distant roll of traffic, a reminder that the city slept lightly. Izuku stretched, feeling the lingering aches from the day before. A bruise along his left rib, a scrape on his right forearm where a ring had caught too hard against the stone. These were small prices to pay for progress. He slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb Yondu, and padded to his desk. The 10 rings pulsed faintly beneath his sleeves when he flexed his wrists. He felt their energy coiled just beneath the surface of his skin. Today, he decided he would learn control. He pulled off his shirt to avoid tangling the bracers in fabric, revealing his forearms ringed in metal that glowed with a pearl-white hum. Yondu's golden eyes followed his every move, tail thumping the floor in anticipation. Ready? Izuku asked, kneeling to slide the dog's head. Let's go. Yondu leapt up, barking twice, as if urging him forward. By dawn's light, Izuku had made his way back to the overgrown castle ruins. The path through the woods was quiet now, dew sparkling on leaves and spiderwebs hung like silver lace between branches. The castle itself rose in solemn silhouette against the morning sky, its walls pocked with time, its towers shattered but still proud. Where broken steps led to empty halls and collapsed ceilings, the air smelled of earth and history. Izuku found the chamber where he had discovered the rings and pressed his palm against the cool stone. Morning light filtered through cracks overhead, painting the dust-laden room in muted gold. He surveyed the hidden chamber with renewed purpose, then moved deeper along a side corridor he had not yet explored. The floor here was smoother, a series of stone circles and faded glyphs marked where pavements had once held wooden training dummies, and where warriors had sharpened their skills. This, he realized, was the perfect spot for a training ground. He set Yondu down and took a breath. He would begin with the simplest exercise, removing and reattaching a single ring at will, without any force or discomfort. He stood in the center of the largest circle, facing the marble pedestal where the rings had first awakened. He closed his eyes, breathing slowly, recalling Shang-Chi's words, "Let your heart be your guide. Do not yield to pride or vengeance. Let your actions be guided by honor." Tentatively, he reached up and grasped the outermost ring on his right forearm. The metal was cold but alive, quivering like a tuned string. He applied gentle pressure, then nothing. The ring would not budge. He exhaled, releasing the tension. One ring at a time, he reminded himself. He pictured the ring's weightless shape, its purpose. He willed it to slip free. With a sudden movement, the ring rocketed off his arm in a blur of light, sending him sprawling backward against the stone floor. Yondu yipped in alarm as the ring clanged into the pedestal and settled into place. Izuku rubbed his arm, feeling the impact. His chest heaved. The grafted piece of metal lay where it had landed, challenging him. He sat up, grimacing at the ache in his back. Undeterred, Izuku retrieved the ring and returned it to his arm, sliding it back into its slot until it clicked into place. Each ring that reattached hummed against his skin, an unspoken reminder of the power they bore. He rose and tried again. This time he focused on calm. Eyes closed, heart slowed, even breath. Warmth pooled in his palm, traveled upward through his wrist, into the metal. He pictured the ring loosening, then sliding free, whoosh. The ring shot off his arm, blasting past his head and burying itself in the broken wall. He ducked instinctively, heart pounding. Shards of stone tinkled to the ground. Yondu barked excitedly, whirling in circles. Izuku rubbed his temple. He had failed again, but his face glowed with exhilaration. He could feel the ring's magic responding to him, testing him. He refused to give up. The next hour passed in a blur of trial and error. Sometimes the ring tore off his arm too violently, sometimes it remained stuck no matter how he willed it. Each attempt left him tired, but with each failure came deeper understanding. The rings were not tools to be commanded but partners requiring harmony. Mid-morning light slanted sharply through a broken ceiling. Izuku paused and wiped sweat from his brow. Yondu trotted back, nudging his hand as though offering encouragement. He sensed the dog's faith in him, unwavering. "All right, Yondu," Izuku murmured, voice hoarse. "Let's try something different." He knelt by the pedestal and retrieved a length of frayed rope that lay nearby, lacing it around the ring he'd anchored there. With Yondu watching attentively, he knotted the rope end loosely around his wrist, creating a fail-safe tether. Now, if the ring shot off, it would only travel as far as the rope allowed. He wound the rope twice around his wrist, knotted it firmly, and stood. Taking a deep breath, he grasped the ring with both hands, envisioning not separation but release. He loosened his grip gradually, felt the metal lighten. Then, under complete control, he slid the ring smoothly off his arm. The rope tautened. The ring hovered in midair before he tugged gently, guiding it back to his wrist, where it slipped into place. He exhaled in a rush of triumph. Yondu's tail wagged wildly. Understanding blossomed in Izuku's mind. He must approach the rings with intent and restraint. He spent the next hours practicing this technique, removing and reattaching each ring one by one. No longer did they fling him against the walls. No longer did they shatter over the stones. Each return was guided by his will alone. By early afternoon, the sweat stung his eyes. But Izuku's spirit soared. He flexed his arms, feeling each ring's subtle hum. The left set resonated with strength and healing. The right set glowed with speed and agility. He called upon each band in turn, admonishing it gently, rest, renew, protect, accelerate. The rings answered, molding their power to his thoughts. With surprising elegance, he darted across the clearing, vaulting over collapsed benches and through broken archways. He leapt from floor to ledge, the rings softening his landings. He extended an arm, and a translucent shield formed to block a cascade of pebbles. He shut his eyes and felt time slow. His senses sharpened beyond normal limits as he practiced basic energy blasts, releasing short arcs of energy that sizzled across the stones without harming the fragile relics of the past. Each burst was purposeful, measured, as if painting strokes on an invisible canvas. At last, Izuku sank to his knees, chest heaving but soul alight. He had trained every ring, tested every function, and proven himself, if only to himself. Yondu bounded over and liked his face, tail sweeping dust in a joyous whirlwind. "I did it, Yondu." Izuku laughed through ragged breaths. "I really did it." Yondu barked twice, standing firm beside his MSTR. Together they trekked back through the corridors to the tunnel entrance, sunlight slanting through cracked walls like a herald of triumph. Izuku flexed his arms one more time, feeling the ring's steady pulse. They were no longer chaotic forces, but tools tempered by his resolve. By the time he reached home in the late afternoon, the sun hung low in the sky. Evening shadows stretched across the sidewalk as Yondu and Izuku emerged from the woods. 𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐵 Midoriya waited on the porch, brow furrowed with relief. "Inko." Izuku greeted, voice bright. "I'm sorry I'm late." Inko's eyes widened at the sight of his tired arms and dirt-smudged clothes. "Izuku, what happened to you? Are people bothering you again?" He looked at her calmly, a soft smile lifting the corners of his mouth despite his weariness. "No, I'm fine." His eyes shone with a new light, hope and joy dancing within them. Inko stared, confusion warring with concern. "I'll tell you everything tomorrow," he said gently, reaching out to hug her. "You won't have to worry after that." Inko's arms tightened around him. She rested her cheek against his shoulder, brow still knitted in confusion. "Tomorrow? But you're hurt." Izuku pressed his cheek to hers, warm and reassuring. "It's good news, but you'll see. Really. Thank you for waiting up, Mom." He pulled back, giving her a playful salute. "Good night." She watched him carry Yondu into the foyer, mind spinning with possibilities. Yet his joyful expression did not match any of her fears. She closed the door behind them, leaning her head against it. "What are you hiding, Izuku?" she whispered. Izuku's bedroom. Night. Yondu padded beside him as Izuku climbed the stairs. Inside, he paused to establish on the lamp. Warm light spilled across his desk, illuminating the rings and the parchment. Yondu hopped onto the bed and curled at the foot, yawns rumbling in his chest. Izuku moved to the bathroom first, washing away the day's grime and applying salve to bruises. Refreshed, he returned to his desk. The 10 rings lay arranged neatly on a velvet cloth he'd fashioned from an old scarf. The parchment lay beside them, its words still glowing faintly in his memory. He closed his eyes and let the quiet wash over him. Yondu's steady breathing was the only sound. With a gentle sigh, Izuku slid under the covers and patted the space beside him. "Good night, Yondu," he murmured. The dog nuzzled his hand, tail flicking once in acknowledgement. Izuku closed his eyes, the hum of the rings echoing like a heartbeat in the dark. Tomorrow would bring questions and revelations, but tonight he had earned his rest. His final thought before sleep claimed him was simple and true: "I'm one step closer to being a hero." The first light of dawn stole through Izuku Midoriya's curtains in slender beams, painting soft stripes across the cluttered floor of his bedroom. He woke to a quiet so profound it felt sacred. No mechanical buzzes, no distant traffic roar, only the gentle rhythm of Yondu's breathing at the foot of his bed. For a moment, Izuku lay still, savoring the silence, then rolled onto his side and tugged at the blanket. His right arm brushed the metal bands at his forearm, 10 rings, gleaming faintly in the morning's glow. He sat up and drew his knees to his chest, flexing first one hand, then the other. The sensation was both familiar and astonishing. Not only did each ring fit perfectly, but the bruises he had worn the night before were entirely gone. "Oh yeah," he whispered, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Regeneration. He remembered reading Shang-Chi's parchment. Even the most brutal injuries healed within days. It had never occurred to him that the process might be practically instantaneous. A thrill of relief and wonder pulsed through him and chased away the last tendrils of sleep. Behind him, Yondu stretched and rose to his paws, shaking out white and red-tipped fur with a wet sound that echoed dully in the quiet room. The dog's bright yellow eyes locked on Izuku's face, tail thumping against the mattress in greeting. Morning, Yondu, Izuku greeted, voice soft. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed and stood. The wooden floor felt cool beneath his bare feet. He leaned down to scratch the dog's ears and smiled at the way Yondu wagged his tail in approval. Ready? Yondu wagged his tail harder, nearly knocking over a stack of hero journals on Izuku's desk. Izuku chuckled and stepped carefully around the pile. Let's go find some breakfast. He found his mother in their compact kitchen, humming as she flipped a pancake in the small frying pan. The late spring air slipped through a cracked window, carrying aromas of maple syrup and toast. A single plate sat ready on the counter, 2 pancakes dusted with powdered sugar, strawberries sliced neatly into halves, and a bowl of plain kibble tucked beside it for Yondu. Izuku Midoriya glanced up, smiling at the sight of her son and the dog padding into the room. Good morning, Izuku. You're up early. Izuku shrugged, trying to temper his excitement into casual ease. Morning. Slept well. His eyes flicked to the pancake plate. Smells great. Izuku handed him a fork. I figured you could use a hearty breakfast. You looked pretty tired last night. A pang of guilt touched Izuku's chest. He'd left his mother worried, with her mind spinning through possibilities. He slid onto a stool at the counter and poured syrup over the pancakes. Yondu settled beneath Izuku's feet, eagerly waiting as Izuku set down a bowl of kibble. Izuku scooped a spoonful into Yondu's bowl. As he ate, Izuku kept his gaze fixed on the dog's eager muzzle, feeling the weight of a truth he needed to share. No more half-answers, no more secrets. The 10 rings were no longer just his alone. They were part of a covenant with his mother, too. When he finished, Izuku placed his empty plate in the sink and turned to Izuku. Mom. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and stepped closer. Yes. He took a breath. Can we go up to my room? There's something I want to show you. Her brow furrowed. You sure you're all right? He nodded emphatically. I promise. It's nothing bad. Izuku studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. But if you need anything, I know, Izuku said, stepping around her and heading for the stairs. Yondu trotted behind him, tail wagging. The stairs creaked under their weight as Izuku led them up to his bedroom. Yondu paused at the threshold, sniffing the air, but Izuku reached behind him and ruffled the dog's fur. Come on, he whispered. Izuku followed, arms crossed, curiosity mingled with maternal concern on her face. Izuku closed the door behind them, then turned and peeled off his shirt in one swift motion. Whoa, Izuku breathed, stepping back. Her eyes traveled over his forearms, where 10 metal rings, 5 on each arm, glimmered like faint halos. Izuku lifted his sleeves further, exposing the rings fully. He spoke in a measured voice, trying to keep his heart from racing. Mom, this is something incredible I discovered yesterday. She pressed a hand to her mouth, breath catching. Oh my, Izuku. He took a deep breath. I found a hidden chamber in an old castle ruin. There was a statue of a warrior called Shang-Chi, and at its base a locked box. I opened the box, and the rings. They bonded to my arms. I can do things. He held out one arm and flexed. The rings glowed softly. Strength, speed, healing. Even things like energy projection and teleportation. Izuku's eyes widened. Energy projection. He placed a small paper cut on his palm and pressed the band of one ring against it. Instantly the skin knit together, the cut vanishing before her eyes. Izuku staggered back, eyes moist. Mom. Izuku said softly. I know it's a lot. But I wanted you to know the truth, because I need your help. She looked at his face, searching for any hint of jest or fear. Instead, she found earnest determination. Slowly, she stepped forward and placed a trembling hand on his arm. These are real. He nodded. Yes. And I've practiced control. I've learned how to remove and reattach them without any issues. I've faced every failure, got back up, and kept trying. Izuku's voice trembled as she asked, Why are you showing me this now? He swallowed. Because I don't want to hide it from you. But I also don't want anyone else to know the truth. If anyone asks, will you help me? We'll say it's just a quirk I developed, a unique quirk. We'll keep the ring's existence a secret. Silence stretched between them as Inko's tears welled. She looked at Yondu, the dog's bright eyes reflecting her own. Then she turned back to Izuku. "Izuku," she whispered. Placing both hands on his forearm, she felt the gentle hum beneath the metal. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm proud of you, and I'm a little scared. But I trust you." Izuku's heart squeezed. He set aside any formal speech and wrapped his arms around his mother in a fierce hug. "Thank you," he murmured into her hair. She hugged him back, one hand slipping to slide the rings as if still marveling they were real. "If anyone asks, you'll say, quirk, right?" He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Just a quirk." A resolution formed between them, silent but unbreakable. Later, they sat at Izuku's desk with cups of chamomile tea. Yondu lay curled at Izuku's feet, ears tilted as if listening. The morning light slanted through the curtains, dust dancing in the soft beams. Inko exhaled and offered a tentative smile. "So, quirk. Unique, powerful quirk." Izuku nodded, sipping his tea. "Exactly. And I'll keep training. The rings are amazing, but they're only tools. I need to stay myself, a hero at heart, not just a ring wielder." Her expression softened with pride. "You've always been brave, Izuku. With or without quirks." His eyes brightened with emotion. "I want to honor Shang-Chi's legacy, make him proud. The ring's parchment. Shang-Chi said you must be pure of heart, use them only for good. I promise I will." Inko reached across the desk and took his hand. "Then I'll help you keep that promise. I'll be your anchor, remind you who you are." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Mom." They sat in contented silence for a moment, mother and son bound by a secret that would shape their futures. Yondu lifted his head and gave a gentle bark, as though urging Izuku forward on his journey. Inko laughed softly. "Both of you are full of surprises." Izuku stood and held out a hand. "Come on, let's clean up and start the day." Yondu bounded to his feet, tail wagging furiously. As Inko left his room, turning off the light with a click, Izuku remained by the desk, gazing at the rings arranged neatly on a piece of cloth. They pulsed in time with his heartbeat, as alive as any creature. He closed his eyes and whispered, "This secret is safe with us." The rings seemed to glow a fraction brighter in response. With that assurance echoing in his mind, Izuku slid beneath the covers. Yondu leapt up and curled beside him, warm fur a living comfort. Izuku stroked the dog's head and murmured, "Good night, Yondu." Yondu's tail thumped once, a small, final confirmation of trust. As sleep claimed him, Izuku's last conscious thought was clear and resolute. "Tomorrow, I'll be ready. Together, we'll prove what a true hero really is." And somewhere, deep within those 10 rings, the promise of new challenges whispered back, eager for the trials that lay ahead. A month had passed since Izuku Midoriya first found the 10 rings. In that time, every dawn found him slipping out of his apartment before sunrise, Yondu faithfully at his heel, and threading the quiet streets toward the ruined castle. Mornings in early summer were cool, mist rose off the overgrown stones and clung to his skin like breath. In those labyrinthine halls and collapsed courtyards, Izuku conducted his personal training, endless repetitions of power and will, seeking mastery over forces born of ancient legend. Morning drills and tumultuous trials. The first streak of gold through the maple canopy found Izuku at the old training circle, back to the pedestal that had first heralded the rings. He began each session the same way, centering his mind, feeling the rings pulse beneath his skin, and summoning the smallest whisper of energy to test control. His earliest experiments were humble, forming a palm-sized shield of swirling energy, enough to deflect a falling pebble. But he pushed himself rapidly to more ambitious feats: partial flight, energy projection, elemental touches. It was the flight trials that humbled him most. One cool morning, Izuku flexed the ring's key to acceleration and projection. He leapt from the raised stone dais and called upward, picturing himself aloft. For a moment he soared, heart soaring, wind singing in his ears, but then the rings overreacted. Rather than carrying him gently, they spun him in a spiraling vortex of energy. Air roared past his ears, his vision blurred, and he landed on the courtyard floor, scattering loose rubble in a furious spray. Pain seared through his ribs and sprains tormented his ankles, but the ring's regenerative glow knit him whole before he even dared to complain. He lay on the ground, chest heaving, and met Yondu's worried gaze. The dog nosed at his shoulder, whining. Izuku rolled to his knees, fingers pressed to aching bones, and whispered, "Not yet. But soon." Each bruise fueled his determination. Each failure was a lesson etched into memory. Over the next 2 weeks, he repeated that flight exercise dozens of times, refining the balance between lift and stability. Small successes glimmered, brief controlled hops, gliding arcs that ended in gentle landings, each progress harder one than the last. By the end of the month, Izuku could rise a few feet, hover, and descend with grace, still short of true flight, but proof of his growth. Alongside flight, he practiced every facet of the rings. Energy blasts became consistent and precise, shields expanded and contracted on command. He experimented with limited teleportation, closing his eyes and willing his body to blur through space, though each jump felt exhausting, and the destination often landed feet first and off balance. Elemental caresses, summoning a swirl of wind to brush aside debris, coaxing a delicate bloom of earth to shift around a broken pillar, remained elusive. The rings responded, but only faintly, as if testing whether he had the focus to bend nature itself. Still, each flicker of potential filled him with hope. In the evenings, he returned home tired but exhilarated, patching wounds with cold compresses and journaling every detail in his hero journal. Yondu waited patiently by the door, greeting him with nuzzles that dissolved the ache in his bones. Confidence grows, school beckons. By the beginning of the second month, Izuku's posture had changed. Shoulders squared, spine straight, he walked through the halls of middle school as though he belonged in the light, not hiding behind scrubs and textbooks. His classmates took note. The once shy boy who trembled under Bakugo's glare now met eyes confidently, offering steady smiles and calm greetings. Even Bakugo, volatile and unyielding, paused in the corridor to study him. "Midoriya," he barked one morning, tossing a paper at him. "What happened to you? You think you're better now?" Izuku caught the paper effortlessly and offered Bakugo a polite nod. "I'm not afraid of you, Katsuki." Bakugo's lips curled. "Not afraid. Don't forget who you are." He shrugged and strode away, the sparks sputtering from his palms a barely contained threat. It was a small victory, yet Izuku felt pride bubble in his chest. For the first time, Bakugo hadn't humiliated him. Instead, the explosion of tension in his glare was something like respect. The confrontation 2 weeks later, Bakugo cornered Izuku in an empty hallway. The lockers on either side were dented and scuffed, as though bearing witness to many struggles. "Why are you so confident?" Bakugo demanded, fists crackling. "Did you forget your place? You're still a useless quirkless freak." Izuku's calm reply floated in the charged air. "I don't need to be afraid of you anymore, Katsuki." At that, Bakugo sneered and unleashed a concussive blast at eye level, intending only to intimidate. The shockwave rattled Izuku's teeth, rattled the lights above, but Izuku did not flinch. Instead, he extended his right arm, palm outward. One of the rings slipped free in a flash of steel and energy, streaked forward, and struck the empty air between them. The shockwave from the returning ring slammed into Bakugo's chest, sending him tumbling backward into the wall. Silence fell. Izuku's palms ached from the effort, his heart hammered with adrenaline. He offered Bakugo a steady gaze. "If you try that again, I won't just send one ring." Bakugo's face twisted with fury and wounded pride. He jumped to his feet and barreled toward Izuku, explosives flaring. Izuku sighed, watching the flames dance across the floor. Then, in a fluid motion born of weeks of practice, he unleashed 8 rings at once. They shot from his forearms like living WTs, coiling around Bakugo's arms and torso in a flourish of clinking metal. With gentle pressure, the rings drew his arms behind him, binding him fast. Izuku stepped forward, breathing easily despite the tension. He lowered his voice, firm and clear. "I used to look up to you, Katsuki. I thought you were the example of how a hero should be. But now all I see is a bully with a fragile ego, more like a villain than anyone who protects others. With a flick of his wrists, the rings released Bakugo, who flew backward through the hallway and landed in a heap against the lockers. The rings zipped back to Izuku's forearms, nestling back into their slots. Izuku straightened, brushing dust from his sleeve, and turned on his heel. Yondu's excited bark echoed down the corridor as Izuku walked away, leaving Bakugo to collect himself. Throughout the rest of the 2 weeks, Bakugo avoided him, eyes down, without ever mentioning the incident. Izuku knew the sting of that bruised pride. He had been far more hurt by Bakugo's words than by the physical bind. Yet it confirmed the fragile balance between power and responsibility he carried. 2-week meditation and reflection with the tension lingering like static in the air, Izuku shifted his focus inward. He returned to the castle ruins, but this time his training had a different rhythm. No longer bursts of trial and error, but long hours of meditation in the hidden chamber, rings glowing softly as he sat cross-legged on the marble floor. He concentrated on the steady beat of their energy, aligning his breathing, centering his thoughts. He visualized each ring's purpose, strength, agility, healing, shielding, and sought to harmonize them without movement. This mental discipline deepened his control, smoothing out the still rough edges of his raw potential. In those silent hours, he learned to sense the ring's aura, the hum of latent power, the threads of possibility they wove through reality. He discovered that even when he did nothing, the rings shaped a field around him, a gentle ward against harm. Though he gained clarity, many techniques still eluded him. Teleportation remained jittery. His destinations arrived off-center or jarringly. Elemental command flickered in his fingertips but would not sustain beyond a flicker of flame or a whisper of wind. Yet his resolve solidified. Every day he trained, every meditation he embraced, was another step toward mastery. Stat check: Izuku's current abilities and aspirations at the end of a full month of grueling morning drills and 2 weeks of meditative refinement, Izuku could reflect honestly on his capabilities. Strength and durability. Current level: can lift 3 times his body weight, resist blunt trauma from falls and debris without injury, heal bruises and sprains in hours. In training, working on sustaining. Near invulnerability under prolonged attack, increasing lifting capacity without ring fatigue. Speed and agility. Current level: able to sprint faster than an Olympic athlete, dodge projectiles with split-second timing, perform acrobatic flips and vaults. In training, smoothing acceleration control to prevent whiplash, refining airborne stabilization to achieve true flight. Regeneration and longevity. Current level: major lacerations and fractures heal within a day, immune to common poisons and infections. In training, learning to direct healing aura to others, exploring limits of resurrecting near-fatal injuries. Energy projection and constructs. Current level: can project concentrated blasts up to 10 meters, form basic energy shields and barriers. In training, refining construct shapes, tools, weapons, or scaffolds, and increasing range without overtaxing his chi. Teleportation and spatial manipulation. Current level: short-range jumps under 5 meters with minor disorientation. In training, practicing longer jumps, precise landings, and mental mapping of target locations. Mystical senses and precognition. Current level: hints of incoming danger, a flash of insight before sudden noises or threats. In training, deepening the ring whispers, to foresee broader patterns, learning to distinguish true warnings from false alarms. Elemental harmony. Current level: briefly summoning gusts of wind and small pulses of earth movement. In training, sustaining elemental effects, combining multiple elements, and resisting environmental extremes. Mental fortitude and leadership. Current level: stronger self-confidence, resisting intimidation, inspiring small groups in crisis drills. In training, cultivating calm under the most chaotic conditions, projecting courage to allies under fire. Overall mastery. Strengths: rapid healing, balanced power across offense, defense, and mobility, unwavering moral compass. Growth areas: fine control of energy and elements, teleportation precision, multi-ring harmonization for complex maneuvers. This honest appraisal steeled Izuku's determination. Mastery was still distant, but the foundations were firm. Evening confession and maternal embrace. The sun had slipped behind the horizon by the time Izuku returned home on a warm Friday evening. Fireflies dotted the darkening lawns, and the cicadas thrummed a steady chorus. Yondu trotted ahead, ears pricked, then paused to nuzzle Izuku's leg. Inside, 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 Midoriya was waiting in the living room, hands clasped in her lap, eyes bright with anticipation. The soft glow of a single lamp cast gentle shadows across her face. "Izuku," she exclaimed, rising. "You're late again." Concern flickered in her eyes as she noticed the fresh scrapes on his arms and the smudges of dirt along his collarbone. He offered her a calm smile. "Training went well today." She reached out, brushing her fingers over one faint bruise, already healing. "Are you okay?" He shrugged, easing onto the couch beside her and patting the cushion for Yondu to settle. The dog curled up obediently, tail thumping. "I'm better than okay," Izuku replied, voice warm. "I've made a lot of progress. Controlled flight for a few seconds straight, precise energy constructs, even combined elemental exercises in meditation." 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚's eyes glowed. "That's amazing." She paused, looking down. "I'm proud of you. But I'm sorry I didn't support you back when you first felt powerless." Izuku's heart softened. He reached across to grasp her hand. "Mom, it's not your fault." He squeezed her hand gently. "Back then, you did everything you could. And if I could talk to my 4-year-old self, I'd tell him to stop moping and start training. But I'd also tell him you loved him and that he could be a hero, because he always could." Tears welled in 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚's eyes. She drew Izuku into a hug that felt like home itself, soft and reassuring. "I should have known," she whispered. "I'm sorry I ever doubted you." He hugged her back, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "It's okay, Mom. You believe in me now, that's all I ever needed." She pulled back and smiled through her tears. "From now on I'll stand by you. I'll help you keep the secret, remind you of who you are, and love you every step of the way." Izuku smiled, warmth spreading in his chest. He ruffled Yondu's ears, then turned back to 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚. "All I need is you, my family Yondu, and the promise I made." They sat together, the three of them, mother, son and dog, bathed in lamplight. Outside, the night sky blinked with stars, as if heralding the dawn of a new chapter. Somewhere in the distance, a wind stirred the leaves, a whisper of the challenges yet to come. But in that moment, Izuku Midoriya felt steadfast and sure. He had the rings, the love of his mother, and the loyalty of a brave dog. With those as his foundation, he would ascend toward his dream, becoming the hero he was always meant to be. 10 months slipped past like dawn turning to dusk, each day a single step on Izuku Midoriya's long climb toward mastery. In that time, morning drills in the ruined castle gave way to formal martial training in sunlit dojos, and his quiet afternoons alone transformed into spirited sparring sessions alongside new friends and teachers. By the end of those 10 months, the 10 rings on his forearms had shifted from their original golden glow into a vibrant emerald hue, a living testament to the harmony he and they had forged together. A mother's blessing for martial arts. One crisp Saturday morning, as the first breath of autumn slipped through the open window, Izuku found his mother in the living room, fussing over a stack of laundry. He stood at the doorway, the rings faintly visible beneath his rolled-up sleeves. "Mom," he began, voice steady, "I've been thinking. Martial arts could help me control the rings better. Could I start lessons?" 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 paused, her eyes softening as she looked at her determined son. "I think that's a wonderful idea," she said after a moment. "It'll teach you discipline, focus, and respect, and help you as you train with your quirk." Izuku grinned, relief and excitement rippling through him. "Thanks, Ma. I knew you'd understand." From that day forward, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon found Izuku walking the downtown streets to the Silver Lotus Dojo, Yondu padding quietly at his side until the front door. Silver Lotus Dojo. The first 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 was a stern Vietnamese grandmaster whose reputation for patience was as legendary as his razor-sharp kicks. His dojo was a converted warehouse, its high ceilings echoing the rhythmic thump of students practicing forms. In their first lesson, Izuku bowed deeply. With 5 rings glowing dimly on each forearm, he executed a simple front stance and punch. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 watched without a word, arms folded behind his back. Power, 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 finally said, is nothing without control. Your rings will grant you strength, but your body must learn to receive it. Again. For weeks, Izuku drilled the basic stances: horse, bow, cat, crane, each movement made heavier by the ring's aura. At first, his punches cracked through wooden boards but left his wrists throbbing from the rush of chi returning to his body. Under 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲's guidance, he learned to absorb and redirect that force. A subtle twist of the wrist here, a shift of weight there. By the end of 3 months under Liang's tutelage, Izuku had internalized the foundation of 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 striking. Direct, efficient, centered. It could deliver a double-ringed palm strike that felt like being struck by a speeding car, and at the same time, remain rooted so firmly that the shock dissipated harmlessly through the earth. On the last day of his 3rd month, 𝐒𝐮𝐴𝐻 called the entire class to line up. Izuku Midoriya, he announced, show us the heart palm. Izuku stepped forward and performed the signature move, a focused blast of chi from his center that rippled outward in a perfect circle, spreading smoothly across the dojo floor without harming the wooden planks. Liang's lips quirked into the faintest of smiles. You have learned well. Continue with humility, dear student. 6 months in, Izuku's progress caught the eye of a traveling martial arts troupe known as the Brotherhood of the Iron Mountain. They practiced in an open courtyard shaded by ancient oaks. Their leader Anatoly Reznikov, a former Western boxing champion turned Zen pugilist, renowned for blending hard and soft styles. Reznikov's school was rigorous. Sparring matched precision strikes against energy-honed shields, shadow boxing with rings off to enhance raw skill, then with rings on to test his ability to integrate the golden-green bands seamlessly. One crisp morning, Anatoly had him stand in a circle of 9 seasoned fighters. Win, he instructed simply. Izuku nodded, heart pounding. The first opponent, a wiry Muay Thai fighter, attacked with knee and elbow combinations. Izuku countered by summoning 3 rings to form a WH-like barrier that caught each strike. He pivoted and replied with a ring-amplified elbow of his own, flooring his opponent without endangering him. Round after round, Izuku faced grapplers, boxers, and breakdancers turned martial artists. Each match ended swiftly, a disarming gust of energy here, a binding ring coil there. Yet when the final fighter, a hulking wrestler with arms like steel girders, charged, Izuku knew raw strength alone wouldn't win. He shifted his stance into a bow, summoned every ring to his left arm, and formed a solid cuff of chi that absorbed the wrestler's tackle. Then Izuku slipped behind him, locking the wrestler's own limbs in a perfectly applied Jujutsu crossblock, and gently laid him out in a final, respectful mat drop. Anatoly approached, eyes bright. You have studied under 2 emissaries now, and surpassed the standard of most who train their entire lives. You carry the rings as if they were extensions of your spirit. Izuku bowed deeply. Thank you, Mr. Reznikov. Throughout these months, Izuku's circle of confidants grew. There was Mei Chen, a Tai Chi prodigy whose gentle shadow hands paired beautifully with Izuku's swift Wing Chun strikes. Raj Patel, a fierce capoeira dancer whose spinning kicks Izuku mirrored, his rings amplifying the sweep of wind, and Nadia Al-Sadi, a parkour enthusiast who taught him to weave through urban obstacles, rings cloaking him in silent footsteps. Together they formed an informal training cohort, meeting at dawn in abandoned warehouses, racing through rooftop courses at sunset, and sharing hearty meals afterward. They joked about superhero names for each other, calibrated their strikes, and pushed each other beyond every limit. One evening, after a rigorous sparring session topped off by Raj's acrobatic victory, they sat in a circle under a street lamp's glow. Izuku flexed his arms, watching the emerald luster of his rings. Look at you, said Mei, nudging him playfully. At the start you could barely hover. Now you're near mastery of your wings and skills. Izuku smiled, but his eyes stayed distant. I still have so much to learn. Nadia grinned. We'll keep up with you. You're the real superhero here. Their laughter echoed down the empty street, proof that even the greatest challenges could be lightened by good friends. As the 10th month dawned, Izuku sensed a subtle shift each time he called upon the rings. The golden warmth of raw power had mellowed into an emerald calm, the color of growth, balance, and life. It was as if the rings themselves recognized his transformation from eager student to adept practitioner. To mark this milestone, Mr. Liang invited Izuku back to the Silver Lotus Dojo for a final demonstration. The wooden training circle, bathed in morning light, felt like a sacred arena. Mr. Reznikov stood alongside Liang, arms crossed, expressions grave but proud. Izuku stepped into the center, Yondu sitting loyally at the door. He bowed first to Liang, then to Reznikov, then to both of them in turn. Slowly, he removed his shirt, the rings on his forearms gleaming vivid green. With a single breath, he called forth the power of all 10 rings. Chi crackled around him in a gentle cyclone, debris lifting in swirling eddies before settling. He moved through a choreography that blended Wing Chun, Tai Chi, boxing, capoeira, and parkour, all informed by the ring's enhancements. The entire display lasted less than a minute, but when it ended, the courtyard was silent. Liang stepped forward and patted Izuku's shoulder. "You have become more than my student," he said softly. "You are a master in your own right." Reznikov nodded, eyes shining. "You fight as if the rings are part of your very soul. They have found their rightful bearer." Tears pricked Izuku's eyes. He bowed once more. "Thank you, Vestas. I will continue to hone these gifts, and to use them for good." That afternoon, under a crimson sunset, Izuku joined his friends and the 2 MSS in the dojo's garden. Mr. Liang presented him with a simple certificate, inscribed in English and Mandarin, declaring him Emerald Ring Bearer, Level, Adept. Reznikov handed him a pair of custom training mitts, fitted to channel the ring's aura more precisely. They embraced one another, Izuku with Mei, Raj, Nadia, then Liang and Reznikov. "Stay in touch," Mei said, her eyes misty. "We'll meet in battle someday, I promise." Reznikov chuckled. "And when you face your greatest enemy, remember this day." Izuku nodded. His heart swelled with gratitude and responsibility. Yondu barked happily, nuzzling against his leg. As darkness fell, Izuku stepped out of the dojo and onto the quiet street. He looked up at the night sky, feeling the emerald rings pulse softly with his heartbeat. He was no longer the quirkless boy who had stumbled through an overgrown castle. He was Izuku Midoriya, the ring-bearer, trained by elders, backed by friends, and guided by a legacy that spanned generations. 10 months of sweat, bruises, triumphs, and setbacks had forged him anew. And though the rings had granted him power beyond dreams, it was his own perseverance, compassion, and humility that had truly shaped him. His journey was far from over, but with every beat of those emerald rings, Izuku knew he was closer than ever to fulfilling his promise, to become a hero worthy of his name, and to stand, at last, as a symbol of hope for all who dared to dream. A crisp autumn wind carried the scent of salt and pine as Izuku Midoriya strode down the street toward a tunnel. The gentle breeze tangled his hair, and stirred the green glow of the 10 rings beneath his sleeves. As he walked, his thoughts turned inward, focused on mastering the rings, how to use them more effectively. He didn't notice something slithering out from a nearby sewer gate. A shape rose silently behind him. The rings on his arm pulsed. Izuku turned just in time to see a creature forming from the grime. "Well, what do we have here?" the creature gurgled. Its body was shapeless muck, with only a crude mouth and glaring eyes. "Looks like I've found a body to use. Don't move, kid. You'll only make this harder for yourself." It lunged at Izuku. Izuku didn't flinch. He slammed his arms to the ground, unleashing a shockwave that blasted the creature backward, splattering goo across the walls. Furious, the creature hissed, "You little brat. You'll pay for that." Izuku jumped back, firing the rings at the ground to boost his momentum. As he dodged incoming attacks, a plan began to form. He extended his arm, launching 8 of the rings into the creature's body. The creature laughed. "Physical attacks won't work on me. You're not strong enough. Now, prepare to be defeated." It surged forward, forming massive arms. Izuku smirked, his fingers shifting into a hand gesture. The creature faltered. What is that supposed to? Inside the creature, the rings began to spin. Slowly at first, then faster. So, the creature screamed, panicking. Get them out of me. Izuku straightened his arm. The rings burst outward in a powerful explosion, scattering the sludge villain. Goo splattered everywhere, dripping harmlessly from the tunnel ceiling. Izuku recalled the rings with a flick of his fingers. They flew back to his arms and snapped into place. He collapsed onto the ground with a sigh. That was a tough one. But I got him. Before he could fully recover, something slammed into the tunnel above. The sewer grate crashed down, and Izuku sprang to his feet, rings glowing. A figure leapt up from the opening, bag in hand. All Might's POV, fear not. For All Might stopped mid-sentence, eyes scanning the scene. Sludge splattered across the tunnel, a boy in a battle-ready stance, and glowing rings on his forearms. Looks like I didn't make it in time. My apologies, I got lost chasing this villain through the sewers. But it seems you handled it all on your own. The boy didn't move. You okay? Suddenly, the boy's face lit up. He jumped in excitement. It's All Might. I can't believe it. You're the #1 hero. Can I get your autograph? He handed over a notebook. Sure. What's your name? Izuku Midoriya, he said, bowing repeatedly. I'm so sorry, I'm just really excited. No need to apologize, I'm the one who should be sorry for arriving late, All Might said kindly. You had to face that villain alone. Speaking of which, he pulled out a few empty bottles from his grocery bag and carefully collected the unconscious sludge into them. He stuffed them into his cargo pockets. So, what's your quirk? He asked. Izuku beamed. My quirk is called 10 rings. These rings on my arms act as enhancers and telekinetic tools. They can produce shockwaves, energy blasts, and they're nearly indestructible. Izuku started rambling, talking faster and faster, but All Might's expression shifted. He felt it. His limit was approaching fast. I used too much time. I need to leave. Izuku's POV. I kept rambling about my quirk until All Might gently interrupted me. All right, kid. I've got to go now. Thank you for the autograph. I'm going to pass this down through my family tree. I bowed repeatedly, but then remembered something. Wait, I need to ask you something. Just as All Might was about to leap away, I shot the rings forward, grappling onto him as he jumped. All Might felt a tug midair. What the? He looked down. Green energy rings wrapped around him, linked to the green-haired kid now dangling below. Hey, what are you doing? I know my fans love me, but this is too much. Let go. If I let go, I'll fall. Izuku shouted. All Might adjusted course. Fine, we're landing. On a rooftop. Moments later, All Might touched down gently. Izuku used the rings to soften his fall. What were you thinking? You could have gotten yourself hurt. All Might scolded. I'm sorry, Izuku said, bowing. But I need to ask you something. He took a breath. Do you think I can become a hero? Without a quirk? All Might froze. Izuku continued, staring at his rings. I know I said these were my quirk, but I lied. I'm quirkless. I found these rings in an abandoned castle after saving a dog. A wall collapsed. I fell into a hidden chamber. There was a box. Inside were the rings. He looked up. So, do you think I can be a hero without a quirk? Smoke puffed from All Might's mouth. Before Izuku stood not the giant symbol of peace, but a thin, frail man. Izuku jumped back. Who are you? You're not All Might, you're an imposter. The man raised his hands. No, wait. Don't use the rings. It's me. I'm All Might. He coughed. Izuku rushed to his side. Are you okay? Do you need help? How do I know it's really you? All Might lifted his shirt, revealing a scar on his left side. I got this fighting a villain years ago. I can only be in my hero form for a limited time each day. Izuku's eyes widened. Even injured, he's still saving people. I'm trusting you with this secret. Please don't share it. I won't. All Might sighed, then met Izuku's eyes. To answer your question, maybe you could be a hero, but not at the level of the top. You'd likely end up a low-level hero, maybe even support. Izuku's heart sank. All Might placed a hand on his shoulder. But that's more than most quirkless kids can dream of. He leapt away to turn in the villain. Izuku lingered, disappointment heavy on his chest. As he walked, an explosion echoed nearby. He ran toward it, notebook in hand, ready to document. But what he saw made his heart race. The sludge villain. Somehow it had escaped. And inside it, Katsuki Bakugo. Struggling. Screaming. Izuku realized, horrified, it escaped from All Might's pocket. Because of me. The heroes nearby weren't moving, waiting for the perfect moment. Another explosion erupted. Izuku moved. A green arc of light split the air as he leapt into the chaos. 8 rings swirled over his arm, fusing into a spinning orb of emerald energy. 2 rings remained in his other hand. With a roar, Izuku launched the orb like a missile. It struck the villain's core, causing a powerful blast. Sludge scattered. Before it could reform, Izuku whipped the last 2 rings like lassos. They wrapped around Bakugo and yanked him free. Izuku caught him gently and lowered him to safety. The rings clicked back into place. The crowd erupted. Pro-heroes stared in awe. Then, young civilian. All Might landed beside them, surveying the scene. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. "Well done," he said softly. "You saved him." As the heroes approached, All Might raised a hand. "One moment." He turned to the crowd. "What I witnessed today was true heroism. This child moved when others hesitated. While you waited for the right angle, he acted." The heroes lowered their heads in shame. All Might turned to Izuku. "You have the heart of a hero." He leaned close and whispered, "Meet me at Dagoba Beach. We need to talk." That evening, Izuku arrived at Dagoba Beach under a silver moon. Waves rolled softly against the shore, washing over broken glass and driftwood. In the distance stood All Might, thin, gaunt, no longer hiding behind the symbol of peace. "Good work today," he said gently, his back to the sea. "Sit with me, young Midoriya." Izuku obeyed, settling in the sand across from him. All Might continued, "You showed something rare today. You acted without thinking of yourself. That instinct, to protect, that is the essence of heroism." Izuku looked down, rings dim under his sleeves. "That's why I believe you're worthy of a secret few have ever known." He paused. The wind went still. "One for all." Izuku blinked. "What?" "It's a quirk," All Might said, voice low. "Passed down through generations. Each user adds their strength to the next. I am the current bearer, but I want you to inherit it." Izuku's mind reeled. He glanced at his rings, ancient, glowing softly. "I already have these. I don't want to dishonor them." "You wouldn't," All Might said. "You'd be combining the strength of 2 legacies, your own and the one I now carry." Izuku clenched his fists. "I won't take this lightly." "You'll need to train," All Might said. 2 months of intense preparation. One for all is powerful. It will be a challenge to... Izuku closed his eyes. The 10 rings pulsed in response, as if encouraging him. Then he nodded. "I accept." All Might smiled, eyes proud. "We begin tomorrow." Weeks 1 to 2. Conditioning the vessel. All Might's training was intense. Push-ups on moving surfboards. Sprinting across sand dunes. Carrying wreckage from the beach with rings deactivated. Each day pushed Izuku to the edge, then further. His body ached. His arms trembled. But at night, the rings glowed faintly, repairing torn muscles, healing strained joints. By the end of week 2, his body no longer protested. It adapted. Weeks 3 to 4. Feeling the surge, All Might guided him in how to sense one for all within him. The feel of what it would be for when he got it, like a pulse in his chest, rising like steam. Breathing drills. Izuku stood still, focusing on the warmth building in his core. He flicked a finger, energy surged up his arm, mimicking the feel of one for all as All Might described it. Controlled bursts. With rings on, he used energy on his body. Each push reinforced his body, making it more durable. By the end of week 4, Izuku could handle a significant portion of One for All without injury. His strikes cracked stone and his reflexes became razor-sharp. Weeks 5 to 8, testing the limits, All Might began stress testing the power of the rings. "Give it everything," All Might commanded. Izuku unleashed a full-force punch. His arm swelled with pain, but the dummy exploded into pieces. He channeled energy into a precise jab, shattering steel. "No injury. I think I can handle more," he reported. All Might raised an eyebrow. "You're calculating your output. Impressive." After week 8, All Might ordered a 2-day rest. Rings off for the first time in over a year, Izuku removed the 10 rings. He wore only sleeves over bare forearms. The rings sat in a velvet pouch beside his bed. He meditated, walked his dog, and practiced basic footwork. On day 2, All Might returned. Punch test. With no rings, Izuku did a punch against a training pad. A shockwave rippled out. All Might nodded. "You're ready. Tomorrow, you inherit One for All." Month 3. The inheritance on a pristine beach now cleared of debris, All Might stood before Izuku. "You've worked hard. Your body is ready." He pulled out a single strand of hair. "Now eat this." Izuku stared. "Seriously?" "Yes." Grimacing, he swallowed it, and the power of One for All passed into him. Months 4 to 6. Mastery of full cowling. All Might introduced him to the full cowling technique, spreading power evenly across his body to avoid breaking any one part. Month 4. Running drills with cowling at 20%. Sparring with All Might while toggling between ring-enhanced and raw One for All attacks. Month 5. Adaptive combat. Izuku began combining rings and cowling in real time, blasting forward with energy while bracing his body with One for All. Feedback control. Every overcharge was corrected on the fly. By month's end, Izuku could hold 35% full cowling without support. Months 7 to 10. Perfection. Month 6. Precision control. Izuku launched short-range ring blasts, weaving between One for All punches. Month 7. Endurance battle. All Might used non-lethal projectiles to bombard Izuku, who maintained 50% cowling while deflecting them. Month 8. Elemental fusion. Izuku learned to channel wind and force around his fists. Punches became whirlwinds of energy. Month 9. Unarmed sparring. Rings retracted. Izuku struck with pure power, no tools. His fists cracked stone. Month 10. Total harmony. Izuku balanced the 10 rings and One for All seamlessly. 35% cowling unaided. 75% with rings on. The final day at the same beach where it all began, Izuku stood tall beneath the fading sun. His dog barked at his side, tail wagging. All Might approached, cloak fluttering. "You are ready," he said. "1 week remains until the entrance exam. Rest, Midoriya. You've earned it." Izuku bowed, eyes focused on the horizon. The 10 rings shimmered on his arms. One for All throbbed like a second heartbeat. He looked toward the distant lights of and smiled. Tomorrow he would be Izuku Midoriya, taking the test to become the greatest hero he could be. The morning sun cast golden rays through Izuku's window as he stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his green jacket with trembling hands. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Today's the day. 10 gleaming rings rested around his forearms, each humming with ancient energy. They had been his secret, his gift, his burden, and now they would be his weapon in the ultimate trial. After months of grueling training under All Might, countless hours mastering both the rings and One for All, this was the moment that would decide whether he could take the first step toward becoming a hero. "Inko," he called out, grabbing his bag. His mother peeked from the kitchen, worry mixed with pride in her eyes. "Be careful, sweetie." "I will. I promise." He smiled reassuringly before running out the door. Each step toward you felt like a step toward destiny. The gates towered above him like a fortress. Hundreds of students gathered near the entrance, each of them buzzing with excitement, nerves, or quiet determination. Izuku spotted some with wings, others with glowing skin, one with engines in his calves. And there he was, quirkless once, now standing among them, powered by two incredible legacies. The written portion passed in a blur. Izuku finished with confident precision. He'd studied everything you might throw at him, but it was the practical portion where he'd shine or fail. He stepped out onto the staging area with his assigned group. Concrete buildings dotted the landscape of the testing grounds, surrounded by walls with viewing platforms. Above them, Present Mick's voice boomed through the speakers. Heroes don't wait for the signal. You see a villain, you act. He shouted, pointing toward the gates. Ready, go. The gates burst open. Izuku dashed forward, drawing power from both the rings and the quirk inside him. One for all surged through his legs, boosting him faster than the rest of the pack. Within seconds, a robot, a two-pointer, lurched into view. Its metal joints hissed as it raised a saw-like arm. Izuku didn't flinch. With a flick of his left wrist, 3 rings detached and launched at the bot. They spun around it midair, then constricted like a metal python. With a shriek of stressed steel, the robot collapsed inward as its limbs crunched and twisted. Another robot, this time a one-pointer, charged from the right. Izuku snapped 2 rings forward like bullets. They struck its torso, punching through the shell before circling back to his arm. 1 point. 2 three-pointers surged at him from either side. He leapt into the air using a small burst of one for all and aimed 5 rings ahead, shaping them into a spiraling wheel of energy. They hit one robot head-on, drilling into its core and causing a burst of metal. With a twist, he landed between the other bot's legs. His remaining rings wrapped around its ankles, compressed, and snapped. The robot toppled. Izuku vaulted off its falling body and sent the rings whipping back into place. 8 points total so far. He moved like a blur, dancing through the battlefield. He used his rings to bind and disable bots, swing between buildings, and launch precision blasts. At one point, he used a ring to trap a robot's arm and redirect it back into the bot's torso. More students caught on to his momentum. That green-haired guy is amazing, someone muttered nearby. Another whispered, is that even a quirk? Izuku ignored them, too focused to care. He moved with intention, striking fast, never lingering, calculating points with every move. The 10-minute mark hit. Students began to slow down, worn from the non-stop combat. Izuku, aided by his regenerative rings and honed stamina, kept pushing forward. That's when the ground shook. A loud boom rolled across the battlefield. From the far end of the arena, the zero-pointer rose like a skyscraper. Dozens of students screamed and scattered, abandoning the fight. Its eyes blazed red as it stomped forward, shaking buildings with each step. No points for fighting it. Present Mike shouted, "Run!" Most students did. Izuku turned to leave, but then he heard it. A scream. Help! He spun around to see a girl pinned under debris, her leg trapped by concrete. Her brown hair was tied in a round bun, Ochako Uraraka, if he remembered her name correctly. Panic clutched at her features as the shadow of the zero-pointer loomed closer. Izuku didn't think. The rings vibrated on his arms, sensing his urgency. He summoned all 10 rings into a single floating sphere before him, compact and glowing like a miniature sun. One for all flared in his legs and arms. He took off in a flash, green lightning crackling around him as he ran straight at the zero-pointer. The sphere in front of him spun rapidly, absorbing energy from the rings. He focused all of one for all into his legs and launched himself upward. Like a comet, he soared toward the zero-pointer's chest. Now! He moved the charged sphere forward with both arms and let out a mighty roar. One for all surged through his muscles as he punched the sphere into the robot's chest cavity. Time seemed to freeze. The sphere flew inside. A heartbeat. The zero-pointer erupted from the inside out, explosions tearing through its metal frame. Shrapnel rained down as its head snapped backward and the massive machine collapsed. The crowd in the control tower went dead silent. On the battlefield, the 10 rings floated down gently, hovering around Izuku like orbiting stars. He stood amid the smoke, arm trembling, chest heaving. Did he just destroy the zero-pointer from the inside? One examiner whispered, "Izawa, sitting in the back corner, wrapped in a black scarf, leaned forward slightly. His eyes scanned the monitor that displayed Izuku's performance. "I want that one," he said in his monotone voice. "You sure?" the examiner beside him asked. "He didn't just rely on strength," Aizawa murmured. "He assessed the battlefield. He adapted. And he made saving someone his top priority. That's what we need. Put him in Class 1A. On the monitor, Izuku reached Ochako and gently used 2 rings to lift the debris off her leg. He didn't say a word, only nodded as the rings floated around her like feathers, wrapping her in a gentle cushion of energy. He lowered her to the ground safely. From the corner of the control room, All Might, skinny and smiling, watched the monitor like a proud father. His eyes shimmered. "He beat my record, both in points and in resolve." He clenched his fist over his heart, feeling the pride swell. "Young Midoriya, I always knew you were the right choice. But now, this just proves it. You're destined for greatness." Back on the field, a tiny old woman with a cane and a nurse's cap approached Izuku, a syringe-shaped cane in hand. "You all right, dear?" she asked cheerfully. Izuku recognized her instantly. "Recovery girl." She chuckled. "Always nice to meet fans. Let's see, any injuries?" Izuku shook his head. "No, tired." He gently lowered Ochako down as the rings floated away from her and returned to his arms. They latched into place with a low hum, hidden beneath his sleeves once more. "Thank you," Ochako whispered, her cheeks pink. "You saved my life." Izuku smiled shyly. Anyone would have done the same. But he knew not everyone would have. He gave a respectful bow to Recovery Girl and walked away as the rest of the students were scooted out of the testing grounds. As he walked back home alone under the setting sun, he thought to himself, "Did I do enough? Did I pass?" His rings pulsed gently in reply. Later that night at home, Izuku sat on the balcony, still in his uniform, hair windswept, rings quietly pulsing with the last energy of the day. Inko knocked gently. "You okay, honey?" He nodded. "Just thinking." "The 0-pointer. All Might." He looked up at the stars. "I used everything I had." Inko hugged him from behind. "Then I'm sure it was enough." He smiled, placing a hand on the rings. For now, all he could do was wait. The week after the entrance exam was supposed to be a time for rest. Izuku had pushed himself beyond his limits, harmonizing one for all and the 10 rings in a feat even All Might admitted surpassed expectations. He'd earned a break. But Izuku Midoriya didn't believe in wasted time. Each morning he rose before sunrise, walked to the beach, and sat cross-legged in the sand. The tide rolled in and out. His breath matched the waves. The 10 rings floated around him in a gentle orbit, spinning slowly with a green and gold glow. He meditated, not just for peace, but for control. He wanted to hear the rings, not just use them. He wanted to listen, to understand the power they held, the history they whispered, and the boundaries he could push. And he was getting closer. By day 4, when he meditated with his eyes closed, he could feel them vibrating with faint emotions, like they were alive. Like they recognized the choices he was making. Like they approved. That night, as his mom handed him a shopping list with a sweet smile and a small wallet, he thought it would just be a quick run to the store. But fate never worked on a schedule. The sky was painted dark blue, just past twilight, when Izuku turned into the alley shortcut behind the convenience store. A rusted fence ran down one side, cracked pavement beneath his feet, and a few overflowing dumpsters lined the shadows. That's when he heard it. "Why the hell does the boss keep you around anyway?" Izuku froze. The voice was harsh and angry. He quickly ducked behind a garbage bin, peeking around the edge. His heart sped up, not from fear, but instinct. He didn't react. He observed. A tall man in a black coat swayed slightly on his feet. His breath reeked of alcohol even from several feet away. A scar ran down one cheek, and his hand twitched like he was looking for a fight. In front of him stood a small child. A girl, no older than 7. Snow-white hair. Crimson eyes that glowed faintly even in the shadows. Her limbs were wrapped in dirty bandages, her clothes thin, and her face void of expression. Except for fear. She didn't scream. Didn't run. She just stood there. "You're a burden," the man slurred, spitting on the ground. "Boss only keeps you 'cause you're his DMN project. But I see through it. You're just a mistake. Hear me." Izuku's BLD ran cold. He was too far to intervene immediately. He needed more information. But then, the man raised his hand. "Maybe if I teach you a lesson, you'll stop looking at me like that." The man's arm reeled back, fingers spread, ready to strike. Izuku's eyes narrowed. "That's enough." One of the rings on his right arm began to spin. Slowly at first, then faster, like a blade revving to life. As the man's hand shot forward, Izuku launched the ring. It whistled through the air and slammed into the man's chest. The thug flew backward, twisting in the air before crashing against the wall. His body slumped to the ground, unconscious. The ring circled once and returned to Izuku's arm, gently snapping back into place. Izuku stood up from behind the bin and stepped into the alley, calm but resolute. The little girl turned sharply, eyes wide with fear. She took a trembling step back. "Hey," Izuku said softly, kneeling a short distance away to avoid scaring her more. "Are you okay?" The girl didn't answer. Her lips quivered. Her bandaged hands curled tightly at her sides. Then she whispered, her voice cracking, "Why need to run? The bad man, he'll come back. They always come back. When people try to help me, they disappear. Please, just go. He'll make you go away." Her breathing grew fast and shallow. She looked around wildly, retreating into herself. Izuku recognized it instantly. A panic attack. He acted fast. He gently stepped closer and wrapped his arms around her in a soft, careful hug. Not too tight, not restrictive, but grounding. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "You're safe now. That man won't hurt you again. I promise." She flinched at first, but then she froze, as if unsure what a hug even was. Izuku pulled back slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Hold on, I have something for you." He walked over to his bag of groceries, pulled it open, and retrieved a small red treat wrapped in plastic, a candy apple. He'd bought it earlier for himself as a reward, but he held it out to her now, offering it like a treasure. "You hungry?" he asked gently. "You can have this. It's sweet. Tastes really good." The girl blinked at the apple. Her eyes flicked from him to the candy and back. Slowly, hesitantly, she took it with both hands like it was something special. Then she bit into it. Her whole body shook. She paused, confused. Then whispered, "It tastes good." Her voice sounded like it was discovering what words meant. Izuku smiled softly. "See? Told you." She stared down at the half-eaten apple, eyes misting. Her lips twitched, but no smile came. She tried again. Her face scrunched slightly. "Nothing. I think I forgot how to smile," she whispered. Izuku's breath caught. That simple, heart-wrenching sentence echoed in his chest. Forgot how to smile. He looked at her bandaged arms, her empty expression, and the flinch that still lingered in every movement. "Who did this to you?" A storm of concern swelled in his chest, but his face remained calm. She didn't need his anger. She needed peace. She needed someone to stay. He gently rubbed her back as she nibbled at the candy, still trying to make her face move the way it used to. A groan echoed behind them. The man was waking up. Izuku stood and stepped between the girl and the alley's exit. His eyes narrowed, his face shadowed. The man groaned again, pushing himself up. What happened?" Before he could finish, Izuku raised his right hand. 5 rings launched in an instant. 1 hit the man in the head, knocking him back down. 2 struck his gut, waking him back up with a shout. The last 2 slammed into his back, knocking the wind out of him and pinning him to the pavement. The man didn't get up again. Izuku lowered his hand, expression unreadable. Then he turned back to the girl and offered his hand. "Come on. Let's get you somewhere safe." She looked up at him with wide eyes. And took it. They walked in silence most of the way. The candy apple was gone by the time they reached a quieter part of town. Izuku didn't press her for answers. He could tell she wasn't ready. He didn't even ask her name. But as they approached a small side street near his home, the girl tugged on his sleeve. "My name is Eri," she whispered. Izuku smiled. "It's nice to meet you, Eri. I'm Izuku." She nodded slowly. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, "Thank you, Izuku." That night, as he returned home, groceries intact and heart-heavy, Izuku stared out the window of his room, the city lights glittering in the distance. The 10 rings hovered in the air before him, pulsing gently. "I'm not strong enough yet," he said softly. "But I will be." He looked at his reflection. "I'll become strong enough to protect people like her." Izuku unlocked the front door with one hand, carefully holding the grocery bag in the other. Eri stood beside him silently, half hiding behind his leg. Her small fingers clutched the edge of his hoodie like it was her lifeline. The door creaked open. "I'm home," Izuku called out. From the kitchen, 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 responded brightly, "Welcome back. Did you manage to find the rice flour?" Her voice cut off the moment she saw them, her son, and the pale, bandaged little girl beside him. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐽's warm expression shifted to worry in an instant. She hurried over, apron still on, eyes flicking between Izuku and Eri. "Zuku, why do you have a child with you?" she asked, soft but firm. Izuku sighed. He gave Eri a small pat on the shoulder before stepping in front of her protectively. "It's a long story. Can we sit down? I'll explain everything." 𝐒𝐮𝐽 nodded quickly, guiding them to the living room. She brought a towel and warm water without asking and immediately began carefully cleaning Eri's arms. The girl didn't resist. She sat perfectly still, almost too still, like she had trained herself not to flinch. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 worked in silence, but her hands were shaking. She was being yelled at by someone in an alley, Izuku began, keeping his voice calm. "I stayed hidden to assess it first. When he tried to hit her, I stopped him." 𝐒𝐮𝐽 froze mid-swipe. Her eyes widened slightly. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there. Like she was used to it, Izuku added, his fists tightening. "I hit the guy and knocked him out. Then I called the police and waited to make sure she was okay before bringing her here." Eri sat quietly through it all, eyes downcast. Her tiny feet dangled over the couch. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 resumed cleaning her, this time more gently. When she finished, she stood up and wiped her hands with a cloth, deep in thought. Then she looked at Izuku and asked in a whisper, "Did she say anything?" She said she forgot how to smile. The cloth dropped from 𝐒𝐮𝐽's hands. Her breath hitched. She knelt beside the girl again, brushing her snowy hair back gently. There was pain in her eyes now, motherly, aching pain that couldn't be hidden. Izuku cleared his throat. "I had to bring her home. I couldn't just leave her." "You did the right thing," 𝐒𝐮𝐽 said quietly. She stood and walked away without another word. Eri blinked, confused. Moments later, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 returned, holding a small piece of fabric in her hands. It was brightly colored and worn with age, a tiny all-might onesie. Izuku's eyes widened. "Wait, that's mine. From when I was little. I figured she could use something clean to wear," 𝐒𝐮𝐽 said, kneeling again. Eri allowed herself to be dressed, still silent. Once the onesie was zipped up, she tugged gently at the fabric, staring at the smiling golden-haired hero emblazoned. Across the front, she tilted her head slightly and asked, "Is this the number 1 hero? All Might?" Izuku exhaled in relief. Yeah, that's him. She knows what heroes are, he thought. Thank goodness. He didn't want to imagine what he would have done otherwise. But something still wasn't right. He turned to her gently. "Hey, Eri. Back in the alley. When you said, 'The bad man will hurt us,' were you talking about that guy?" He pointed vaguely toward the door. Eri's shoulders stiffened. She didn't answer. Izuku moved closer and knelt in front of her. "It's okay. You don't have to be scared. He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore." She began to tremble. Tears welled up in her red eyes as she looked up at him and whispered, Not him. The real bad man. He'll find me. He'll take me back." 𝐒𝐮𝐽, standing behind the couch, tensed. "Who is he?" Izuku asked carefully. Eri bit her lip. Her body shook as she whispered one name, Overhaul. Everything stopped. 𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐵 gasped audibly. Izuku's face went pale. He knew the name, he'd seen it in reports during his research. The head of the 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐴, a cruel villain known for erasing those who got in his way, rumored to be experimenting on people with quirks. No one ever found enough to convict him. Eri looked like she was about to be sick. He hurt me, she whispered. He said I broke things. He said I wasn't useful. He kept trying things. When people tried to help me, disappeared. Izuku felt his hands trembling. He gritted his teeth and held her close again, shielding her with his arms. You're not going back, he said, voice low but firm. I don't care who he is. I'll protect you. I swear, Eri. 𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐵 walked over and wrapped her arms around both of them. You're safe now, sweetheart, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. We won't let anyone hurt you again. Eri clung to them, tears soaking through Izuku's hoodie. They stayed like that for a while. Then came the thumping of paws. A furry head poked into the living room, a medium-sized, fluffy golden dog with one floppy ear and a wagging tail. Yondu, Izuku said softly. The dog barked once and padded over. Eri's eyes widened in alarm. She scooted back a little. Izuku quickly spoke. It's okay. He's not dangerous. He's our family dog. He'll protect you too. Yondu stopped in front of Eri, tail swishing gently. After a long pause, she slowly reached out with one tiny hand. The moment her fingers brushed his soft fur, her body relaxed. He's fluffy, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She wrapped her arms around Yondu's neck and leaned into him. The dog sat perfectly still, letting her hug him like a pillow. She tried again to smile. Her face twitched. Muscles moved. Her lips tugged faintly upward, but nothing came. I still can't smile, she said. Izuku turned away for a moment. His fists clenched at his sides. His entire body shook with determination. How much pain? How much trauma does a child have to go through to forget how to smile? He looked back at her. Overhaul. That name burned in his mind. You're done. You don't get to hurt people like this. Not anymore. I promise you, Izuku said aloud, kneeling in front of Eri. He'll never get near you again. I'll make sure of it. Eri looked up at him, red eyes wide. For a moment, her lips trembled. Promise, she whispered. I promise, Izuku said. 𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐵 nodded beside him. You're part of our family now, Eri. The small girl said nothing, but she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Izuku's neck in a quiet hug. No more words were needed. That night, Eri slept curled up in Izuku's bed, wrapped in a blanket and holding a small All Might plush 𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐵 had kept stored in a box. Yondu lay beside her like a loyal guardian. Izuku stood at the window looking out at the stars. The rings floated beside him, humming faintly. You feel it too, huh? He whispered. That need to protect. He clenched his fist. Overhaul's finished. This wasn't just about being a hero anymore. It was about doing what was right. The week following the U entrance exam passed in a blur of quiet anticipation. For the first few days, Izuku barely left his room. Between long sessions of meditating with the rings, gentle physical training, and helping Eri adjust to her new life, he found little time to worry, but the anxiety still settled deep in his chest. The 10 rings orbited silently during his meditations, spinning slowly around him in a faint emerald glow. Ever since the exam, they seemed more attuned to him, responding with speed, precision, and a strange sentience he couldn't quite understand yet. They pulsed when he meditated. They vibrated faintly when Eri was near, as if reacting to her presence. And every day, without fail, he waited by the mailbox. On the 7th day, just as the sun began its descent behind Mizudafu's rooftops, a distinctive envelope arrived. Thick parchment, wax seal, and the bold, official U. A high school emblem on the front. Zuku, his mom called softly from the hallway, holding the envelope like it was a sacred scroll. It's here. Izuku jumped from his seat in excitement. Eri, who had been quietly sketching in her new notebook, looked up with wide eyes. He took the envelope with trembling fingers, staring at it for several seconds before slowly walking to his room. I'll be right back, he said to Eri gently. I need to see what it says. Izuku. Inko reached out, resting a hand on his shoulder. No matter what it says, I'm proud of you. He gave a shaky smile, nodded, and closed the door behind him. Inside the room, Izuku sat on his bed, envelope in hand, 10 rings resting quietly on his forearm. He turned the envelope over. A wax seal with you. S crest glinted in the light. He broke the seal. As soon as the flap opened, the paper within pulsed faintly, and a small round holographic projector floated up from the envelope. A soft whirring sound filled the room, and then, I am here. The voice nearly knocked Izuku back. A golden light exploded into the room as All Might's hologram appeared in full, arms crossed and that massive grin stretched across his face. Izuku gawked. Wait, what? The hologram beamed brighter. Greetings, young Midoriya. If you're seeing this, then the results of the entrance exam have been decided, and spoiler alert, you did amazing. He could hardly breathe. I must admit, the instructors and even some of the pro heroes were stunned. Let's take a quick look back, shall we? The projection shifted, now showing footage from the exam. Izuku watched as a massive three-pointer charged across the screen. A blur of green energy and spinning metal collided into its center, one ring slamming into its core, another binding its legs, then it exploded in a shower of sparks. Next, the screen showed him compressing 3 rings around a mid-sized robot's arm, tearing it off with precision. A swift pull sent the rest of the bot flying into a wall. Then the CLMX. The zero-pointer towered over everyone, dust and smoke filling the battlefield. Ochako was trapped. No one moved, except him. Izuku on screen formed a glowing orb of rings, charged it with one for all, and hurled it like a comet into the zero-pointer's core. The massive robot exploded from the inside, pieces flying everywhere as the 10 rings scattered, then, with perfect grace, returned to him in formation like he was their center of gravity. The screen froze on that image, Midoriya standing amidst the aftermath, rings orbiting his arms, smoke rising around him like a legend come to life. The projection shifted back to All Might. Let me tell you what made the difference, young man. It wasn't just your power. It was your heart. Izuku's throat tightened. You didn't hesitate to act. You saw someone in danger and you moved. That's the mark of a true hero. The proctors didn't just award you villain points, we also awarded rescue points. A new screen appeared, a scoreboard. Izuku Midoriya, a villain points, 65, rescue points, 70, total score, 135, new record, highest score in U. Entrance exam history. His jaw dropped. A new record, All Might's voice echoed. Even higher than mine when I took the test. You've more than proven yourself. The hologram softened. All Might's tone became more personal. Congratulations, young Midoriya. You've been accepted into U. High School, Class 1A. The hologram paused, then ended with a salute and a booming laugh. Plus Ultra. After the letter, Izuku sat on the bed for a long moment, unmoving. The rings floated slowly up around him, sensing the surge of emotion in his body. I got in, he whispered. Then louder. I got in. Yondu barked excitedly outside the door. Izuku burst out of his room, waving the letter and the results sheet in one hand. I got in. Inko gasped and threw her arms around him. I'm so proud of you, Izuku. I knew you'd make it. Eri looked up, confused. Got in. Izuku knelt and hugged her. I get to go to the school that trains heroes, Eri. I get to become a hero. Just like I always dreamed. Eri's eyes widened slightly. All Might. He smiled. Exactly. She hesitated, then whispered, then, can I be a hero one day too? Izuku felt his heart catch. You already are, Eri. Just surviving what you did. That makes you the bravest person I know. Inko wiped away tears, trying to remain composed, but her voice cracked. I can't believe it. My baby's going to you. Izuku stood, tears in his own eyes. We're one step closer. Eri looked down at her bandaged arms, then slowly to Izuku's glowing rings. Do you think? The rings like me too. He smiled. They like good people. So yeah, I think they like you a lot. Yondu barked again, wagging his tail furiously. Eri giggled, just a little. Later that night Izuku sat on the roof of the apartment, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The rings floated beside him in silent orbit. A cool breeze ruffled his hair. He looked up at the stars. Oh my... Thank you. For trusting me. For giving me this chance. He remembered Eri's words. I think I forgot how to smile. He clenched his fist. Overhaul. You're out there. And I don't care how long it takes or how strong you are, I'm going to stop you. The rings pulsed once in agreement. I'm going to protect her. I'm going to protect everyone I can. Just like a hero should. It was a warm morning at high school. Class 1A sat in the changing room, the tension palpable as they slipped into their gym uniforms. The murmurs among the students were mostly the same: anxiety, excitement, and anticipation of what the #1 hero school had in store for them. Izuku Midoriya sat on a bench, quietly tightening the black bands that housed the 10 rings around his forearms. They pulsed faintly with a green hue now, a sign of his synchronization after months of meditation and combat training. The moment he clasped the last one into place, they clicked together like a whisper. A presence. A weight. A power. He breathed out slowly. This would be his first chance to show what he could really do at you. And he had no intention of hiding. Outside on the track field, Eraserhead, better known as Aizawa, stood lazily before the class, wrapped in his yellow capture weapon, his tired eyes scanning the class with a bored but sharp expression. Quirk apprehension test, he said flatly. The class blinked. But what about the entrance ceremony? Ida protested, eyes wide. Aren't we missing formalities? This is UA, Aizawa interrupted. If you wanted cushy introductions, you should have gone to a different school. The air tensed. A few students exchanged nervous glances. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Todoroki remained still. Izuku stood quietly, a soft hum of energy vibrating under his sleeves. Aizawa pulled up a tablet. Midoriya. You placed first in combat score during the entrance exam, beating even All Might's former record. How far did you throw in middle school? Izuku stepped forward, adjusting his stance. 63 meters. Aizawa tossed him a softball. Use your quirk. Go all out. Murmurs broke out instantly. Wait, he got first place. Didn't he look quirkless on the first day? He looks kind of scary with those rings. Izuku took a breath, walking toward the throwing circle. As he stepped inside, he held the ball in his hand, then extended his arm outward. The rings detached from his forearm in a smooth motion. 5 hovered in the air and then latched tightly around the ball. They compressed, clinking together and locking the ball in an unbreakable hold. Then they started spinning in place rapidly. A low hum filled the air, the green hue glowing brighter. Izuku activated full cowling at 50%, the highest output he could use with the rings without injury. Energy sparked off his body. His feet dug into the dirt. A ring of wind formed around him as he braced himself. With a fierce yell, he punched the ball with all the force he could muster. The moment his fist connected, the compressed rings launched the ball into the sky with a loud boom. The class gasped as the ball became a distant dot in the clouds. A few moments of stunned silence passed. Then came the series of sounds in the sky, 5 distinct booms, one after another. Izuku smirked slightly and turned back toward the class. The rings were programmed to boost the ball further once it started losing velocity. Aizawa's eyes narrowed slightly. He glanced down at the tablet. His brow twitched. 57 meters, he muttered. This is how a hero uses their quirk to its full potential. The class erupted in murmurs again, half in awe, half in disbelief. Before Aizawa could say anything more, the calm was broken by a faint clang in the distance. The class turned to look behind Izuku. One of the rings was slowly floating back toward him. Another clang. Then another. He smiled sheepishly. I kinda have to wait for them to come back. A few students chuckled. Even Aizawa's mouth twitched slightly in amusement. When the final ring came whizzing back, it smacked Izuku on the back mid-jump during the long jump portion of the test. The ring's momentum sent him flying past the sandpit, where he landed face-first on the track several meters beyond the mark. He lifted his head, dazed but unharmed, muttering into the dirt. Totally meant to do that. The class laughed harder this time, even 𝐒𝐲𝐸 cracking a sharp grin before scowling again. The rest of the test progressed smoothly. Izuku used his rings to disassemble and reassemble obstacles during the side shuffle. He enhanced his grip strength by using 2 rings to boost tension. During the sprint, he surfed on a pair of spinning rings like twin hoverboards. But not everything was serious. At one point, Kaminari and Siro got their shoelaces tied together during the sidestep drill. Toru Hagakure tripped and accidentally spooked Ojiro into doing a backflip. Shoji, ever serious, simply caught Tokoyami mid-run after the latter's cape got stuck in a fence. Meanwhile, Aizawa made notes without visible expression. Eventually, the tests ended. The class was breathing, exhausted, and standing in a loose half-circle around Aizawa. "One of you is expelled," he said flatly. Everyone froze. "What?" Mina's jaw dropped. Sato nearly fainted. Ida gasped. Mineta screamed. "This isn't fair." I was trying my best," I said. Aizawa repeated. "One of you. Not everyone. You're not all useless. But some of you are more of a risk than an asset." He lifted the tablet and turned it around. Mineta, dead last. Aizawa stared blankly. "You didn't just come in last. You actively distracted your classmates during their turns. You were caught staring up girls' skirts twice. You interfered with Ishido's test during the seated toe touch. And you failed 3 of 8 categories." Mineta tried to protest, but Aizawa's glare silenced him. "Pack your things." The class stood in shocked silence as Mineta slowly walked away. Some felt guilty, others relieved. "I was joking about expulsion," Aizawa muttered as Mineta passed him. "Except for him." Later that day, in a dark underground compound far from you, a man in a black suit with white gloves threw a table across the room in a fit of frustration. Vials of red liquid shattered on impact. The lights flickered. "I'm going to find out who took her," the man said, adjusting his mask. "Eri belongs to me." Overhaul paced the room like a cornered predator. "The serum isn't ready. The Quirker racing bullets need her. I'll find whoever stole her. And I'll make sure they face justice." He slammed his fist down on the console, breathing heavily. Behind him, a tray of prototype bullets glimmered in the dim light. Back at home, Izuku flopped down on the couch, exhausted but happy. Yondu, his loyal dog, nuzzled up beside him. Eri, now cleaned up, wearing a slightly oversized All Might onesie, sat quietly on the other couch, her eyes watching the ceiling fan spin. Inko brought them both tea, setting it down with a proud but concerned smile. "You did amazing, Izuku. You really showed them today." Izuku smiled gently. "Thanks, Mom." Eri blinked, still quiet. Izuku turned to her and offered a piece of mochi. She took it, staring at it before taking a small bite. No smile. Not yet. But a soft "thank you" left her lips. That was enough. The next morning at the Class 1A sat in their desks, still buzzing with energy from the quirk assessment the day before. Just as students began to speculate what today's lesson might be, the massive doors slid open, and in walked none other than the symbol of peace. All Might. Kaminari gasped. Walking through the door like a normal person. All Might declared dramatically, hands on hips, his cape somehow flapping in an unseen breeze despite the indoor setting. The class cheered. Today's lesson will be Battle Trial. Gasps echoed throughout the room. All Might explained the rules. A 2-on-2 indoor battle simulating a villain versus hero confrontation. One team would protect a nuclear bomb, the other would infiltrate and neutralize them. Costumes were retrieved and worn. As Izuku zipped up into his green battle suit, updated with reinforced sleeves for the rings and armor plating, he couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and excitement. This would be his first true battle under the U banner. Team matchup. Team A heroes. Izuku Midoriya and Achiko Uraraka, Team D villains. Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. All Might's voice thundered through the arena speakers. Begin. The instant the signal rang, Bakugo sprinted off, explosive palms flashing. Izuku turned to Ochako. You go for the bomb. I'll handle Bakugo. You sure? She asked, concerned. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Trust me. Bakugo roared around the corner like a fired bullet. DKU. Izuku launched 2 rings forward as they spun mid-air, catching Bakugo's gauntlet as he threw an explosion, redirecting it down the hall away from himself. The hallway burst with smoke. Izuku leapt through it, another ring circling him like a shield as he met Bakugo mid-air. The two clashed, fists, explosions, and spinning rings striking against each other in rapid succession. You think you're better than me because of those toys? Bakugo shouted. Izuku's voice was calm. No, I think I'm better because I think. He twisted his body, sending 3 rings behind Bakugo and 1 under him. They locked midair into a square formation and suddenly contracted, knocking Bakugo back. Gah! Bakugo went flying into the wall. Meanwhile, Ochako used her gravity to sneak around Ida, who was role-playing the villain far too seriously. She tagged the bomb. Hero team wins. Later in the locker room, Bakugo seethed in silence. Ida patted his shoulder. You fought well, Bakugo. Midoriya is formidable. Izuku, on the other hand, felt a mix of satisfaction and concern. Beating Bakugo wasn't the goal, it was protecting his teammates. But from the way Bakugo was clenching his fists, this rivalry was far from over. The next day, class president vote the students were still buzzing about yesterday's matches when Aizawa entered the classroom, hair slightly more disheveled than usual. Before we begin, you'll elect your class president. Excitement rang out. Mina raised her hand. Should we do speeches? Aizawa blinked. This isn't a student council. He fell asleep in his sleeping bag almost immediately after. Everyone cast votes. When the final tally was projected on the board, Izuku Midoriya, 5 votes, Tenya Ida, 3 votes, Momo Yaoyorozu, 2 votes, Wait, 5 votes. Izuku muttered, blinking. You voted for yourself, didn't you? Kaminari asked. No, I didn't. Ochako raised her hand. I voted for you, Midoriya. Slowly, others admitted the same. His performance, his humility, his power, it had already begun to earn the class's trust. Aizawa stirred. Midoriya, class president. Ida, vice president. Panic in the halls shortly after lunch. A shrill alarm blared through the school. Red lights flashed. A voice over the intercom warned of a potential breach. Panic set in immediately. Students from several classes poured into the hallway. 1A followed, voices rising, people pushing, fear spreading. We're under attack. What's going on? We have to get out of here, the crowd surged. Bodies pushed and jostled. Until a sudden shockwave blasted through the corridor, halting everyone. Floating in the air above them was Izuku, his rings humming with controlled force around him. 2 rings shot to the far end of the hall, embedding into the wall. He slammed his arms together and the remaining rings clashed with a massive clang, releasing a resonating shockwave that pushed everyone back gently but firmly. Everyone froze. Izuku pointed calmly to the glass door below, where the press swarmed outside the gates. It's just reporters, he said loudly. The security's handling it. No villains. No need to panic. The silence that followed was heavy, then relief. From outside, they saw Aizawa and Hound Dog scolding the press, pushing them back beyond the gates. Ida stared in admiration. That is what leadership looks like. All Might, watching from a second-floor window, smiled proudly. Well done, young Midoriya. Later that night back at home, Izuku walked through the front door with a bag of groceries and a paper-wrapped item in hand. Eri, I got you something. Eri peeked from the couch, where she was laying curled up on Yondu's back. The dog wagged his tail lazily. Izuku revealed the gift, a fresh, shiny candy apple. Eri's face lit up just a bit. As she carefully climbed off the dog and took the treat, sitting back down as she nibbled on it with tiny bites. Sweet, she said softly, hugging Yondu's fluffy neck while munching. Inko came out of the kitchen, smiling at the sight. You've been spoiling her with those lately. Izuku shrugged, grinning. She deserves it. Dinner passed calmly. Homemade katsudon. Eri, while still not very vocal, tried everything on her plate. Afterward, Inko cleaned the dishes while Izuku helped Eri into her pajamas. The little girl clutched his sleeve as he led her to her bed, a new one, sized just for her, placed beside Izuku's own. She still struggled to sleep alone. Izuku tucked her in, brushing her hair from her eyes. "Sleep tight, Eri." She pulled Yondu closer and whispered, "Don't go too far." "I won't," Izuku said softly. She slowly drifted off, hand clinging to Yondu's fur. The dog let out a soft, sleepy woof and curled up beside her protectively. Izuku sat on his bed in the dark, listening to her breathing, his mind full of thoughts. Villains like Overhaul were still out there. But so was he. And he had Eri to protect now. A mother who supported him. Friends and classmates who trusted him. Power. Responsibility. Destiny. He looked at the rings gently orbiting his arm and thought to himself, what comes next? I'll face it head-on. The low hum of morning traffic filled the streets of Mizudafu as sunlight streamed through the glass panels of Hi. Inside the faculty wing, All Might sat behind a desk in his skeletal form, reviewing surveillance footage of Izuku's training from the previous day. His gaunt expression was etched with worry. Spinning through the air, 5 green glowing rings weaved around a floating object, only for it to be launched hundreds of meters with precision. All Might leaned back in his chair. The power's evolving. But is he keeping up with it? A knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Izuku stepped inside, clutching a notebook. "You wanted to talk, All Might?" All Might gave a small nod and gestured for him to sit. "I've been reviewing how you've been integrating the rings into your use of One for All." Izuku perked up. "I've been trying to figure out how to combine them more. They're kind of like an extension of me now, and I've been syncing them with 50% full cowl." All Might raised a hand. "That's precisely what concerns me." Izuku blinked. All Might sighed. "Those rings are powerful, Midoriya. Far more than we initially thought. They're not just tools, they're amplifiers, reactors, and possibly conduits of something even more ancient. We don't fully understand them. Not even your mother knows where they came from." "I know," Izuku admitted, his voice quiet. "I trust you. I truly do. But I need you to promise me something." Izuku sat straighter. "Anything. Promise me that no matter how strong you get, no matter how much those rings offer you, you'll stay true to the heart of a hero. That you'll never lose yourself chasing strength." There was silence between them. Then, without hesitation, Izuku said, "I promise. I won't let them change who I am. I'll use them to protect people. To help people. Especially those like Eri, who never had someone to stand up for them before." All Might smiled faintly. "That's all I needed to hear." The classroom, all right, Aizawa said the next morning, eyes bloodshot as usual. "Tomorrow's exercise will be at an off-campus facility, the USJ. USJ, someone whispered. Uraraka grinned. Unforeseen simulation joint. Sounds fancy. You'll be simulating rescue scenarios, Aizawa continued. So make a choice. Wear your hero costume, or, if yours is damaged or ill-suited for the setting, wear your uniform. I expect readiness and professionalism." The class nodded. Izuku jotted notes down quietly, mind already running through combinations of full cowl and the rings. If I can spin the rings to create rotational force and use full cowl to direct it, maybe I can generate propulsion in the air without rebound damage. He looked at his hand, flexing it slowly. The green crackle of One for All shimmered faintly as one ring hummed to life and orbited his wrist. So much potential. But still so much he didn't understand. That evening back at home, the warm smell of miso soup drifted through the apartment as Izuku sat at the kotatsu with Eri, helping her with her coloring book. Yondu lay beside them, snoozing gently, a blanket half draped over him by Eri's small hands. "Look," she said softly, showing Izuku a page she'd finished. The coloring was careful, if a bit shaky. "That's amazing, Eri," Izuku said with a grin, ruffling her hair. "You're getting better every day." She beamed faintly and returned to her drawing, clutching her favorite red crayon. Later, Izuku took Yondu for a walk under the starlit sky. As he jogged alongside the big dog, his thoughts turned serious. People like Overhaul shouldn't be allowed to exist. No one deserves what Eri went through. As his mind churned, one of the rings orbiting his arm pulsed. He paused. The green glow flickered, just for a second, into a soft blue. Izuku blinked, staring at it. Then it was green again. Was that a glitch? Or something else? Before he could ponder it further, his eyes caught something out of the corner of his vision. TVs in an electronics store window. He stopped in front of them, Yondu sitting at his side. On the screen, a news anchor was speaking. Police report says that the convict known only as Razor was broken out of Mizudafu Detention Center last night. Security footage confirms the presence of an unknown individual wearing a plague mask, presumed to be quirk-enhanced. Authorities are warning civilians to remain alert and avoid areas under investigation. The screen shifted to a CCTV image. Razor, the thug Izuku had knocked out when he rescued Eri. Izuku's hands clenched. He was rescued. Who the hell? Then the screen cut to a grainy video feed. Inside a dim warehouse, a man with a plague mask stood silently. Overhaul. And Razor, the thug, now only half a man. Please. I was drunk, I didn't even see who took her. Just green hair and freckles. I swear I didn't mean to, don't hurt me. The camera didn't move. Overhaul stared at him. I'm not going to hurt you. He extended a single finger. The body disappeared, obliterated into mist. Then, with a flick, Overhaul rebuilt the man, but without arms. Without a mouth. Just a face locked in silent horror. I removed your vocal cords, Overhaul said flatly. You had one job. You failed. He dragged the trembling man to a cracked mirror and spun him around. Scarred into the thug's back in jagged, gnarled lettering were the words, "Garbage, useless, pathetic, disgusting, take him," Overhaul said coldly. Another plague-masked underling appeared and bowed. Break him. Near death, not beyond. Then dump him somewhere fitting. The screen faded to black. Izuku's BLD felt like it turned to ice. He knows I exist. His fists clenched at his sides, and the rings around his arms spun, resonating slightly. If he comes for Eri. He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. The sun was only just beginning to rise when Izuku Midoriya stood outside on his balcony, speaking quietly into his phone. Are you sure you're okay? He asked. All Might's voice crackled over the speaker, hoarse but reassuring. I'm fine, young Midoriya. My time limit is growing shorter, yes, but I still have some fight left in me. Izuku looked down, troubled. Do you think you'll still be able to stay active until I graduate? There was a pause. I can't promise that. But don't worry about me. UA's third years, and even some students at other hero schools, are showing great promise. The next generation is strong. Even if my embers fade, the torch will carry on. Izuku gripped the railing. This isn't because you gave me one for all, right? No, All Might said firmly. This was always going to happen. My body just can't take the strain anymore. You'll understand one day. I'll see you at the USJ. The call ended, and Izuku slid the phone into his pocket, staring out over the horizon. Class 1A buzzed with anticipation. Izuku joined the chatter as they prepared for the rescue training. Kaminari said, I wonder what kind of stuff they've got there. Don't forget your hero costumes, Ida reminded them, hands karate chopping the air. Unless they're damaged or not suited for the location. Izuku nodded, picking up his costume case. He'd checked it the night before, ready and reinforced. His eyes drifted briefly to his rings. They spun gently, glowing faintly green. Soon, Aizawa arrived. Time to move. Head to the main entrance. Buses are waiting. As they boarded the bus, the chatter picked up again. Ida tried to impose seating order but failed. Hey, Midoriya, Siro asked, looking curiously at the rings on Izuku's wrists. How do those work, anyway? Izuku blinked. He'd prepared for this. Oh, they're a prototype support item, built to work with my quirk. Like directional kinetic amplifiers. I helped design the control interface. That's pretty cool, Kirishima said. Sounds complicated, Mina added. Izuku chuckled nervously. That worked. The USJ loomed before them like a steel dome of endless possibilities. Inside, they were greeted by the space-themed pro hero, 13. As she explained the training zones, Izuku's rings flickered. One sparked erratically. He frowned. Something's wrong. Behind him, he caught a whisper, 13 murmuring to Aizawa, All Might's not here, right? Time limit's up. Izuku's heart sank. Before he could speak, Kirishima pointed. Hey, who are those guys? From the central plaza, a dark portal spiraled open. Dozens of villains emerged. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. 13, protect the students. I'll engage. Kurogyri emerged from the vortex. We are here for the symbol of peace. He didn't get to say more. Izuku's ring launched and knocked him aside. Ida, run and get help. No. Izuku shouted. Ida hesitated. 13 yelled, Go. As Kurogyri reformed, mist spread, consuming half the class. Izuku felt gravity disappear. He was falling. Splash. He hit cold water but spun a ring out, latching onto a nearby boat. With a tug, he flung himself onto it. Two others were falling, Zako and Tu. He fired 2 rings, catching them midair and pulling them in. You okay? Yeah, Tsuyu replied. Thank you. They were surrounded. Villains in the water closed in. Izuku looked to the girls. I have a plan. Uraraka, make me and Azui float. Get ready to grab us. Ochako nodded and activated her quirk. Izuku jumped high, pulling the girls above the lake. Mid-air, he charged up. 30% full cowl surged into his rings. With a roar, he launched them into the lake. The explosion carved a swirling crater. His fingers moved, rings spinning, forming a vortex. A spiraling water tornado. Now. Tsuyu's tongue shot out, grabbing Izuku and Ochako, flinging them to shore. The tornado collapsed. The villains were knocked out. They barely caught their breath when a crash shook the plaza. Aizawa was being overwhelmed by a monstrous figure. Shigaraki stood beside him. One got away. Shame. Still, a few graves for All Might will do. He lunged, straight at Tsu. Izuku tried to move, but his body froze. Move. He screamed internally. A black tendril exploded from his back, knocking Shigaraki away. Tsuyu leapt back with Ochako as more tendrils flailed. Shigaraki was pulled away by Kurogyri. Shigaraki. Izuku breathed heavily, regaining control. So your name's Shigaraki. I'll make sure you're locked up. Enemu. Get rid of that brat. The Nomu released Aizawa and charged. Izuku dodged, launching a 1-4 alt-powered punch. The Nomu stumbled but didn't fall. Another black tendril saved Izuku just before impact. Shock absorption, Izuku muttered. Not nullification. He charged, 55% full cowl. Rings spun. With a crack, he slammed the Nomu into the wall, breaking its arms. Then it regenerated. Shigaraki laughed. Multiple quirks. Regeneration, strength, shock absorption. He's stronger than All Might. Izuku's smirk made Shigaraki falter. Why are you smiling? Because I don't need to beat him, just stall. Izuku's rings rose, spinning wildly. He pummeled the Nomu in an endless barrage. Kurogyri. Open a portal behind him. Izuku, distracted, didn't notice. A hand reached for his neck. Too fast, can't move. Another tendril shot out and snapped Shigaraki's wrist. Shigaraki reeled back, howling. Izuku was hit. He collapsed. Nomu approached for the finishing blow. The doors burst open. All Might stood there, not smiling, fuming. He blurred forward, slamming the Nomu away and grabbing Izuku. You did well, young Midoriya. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Izuku gripped his wrist. Give me your arms. All Might obeyed. The rings floated off Izuku and latched onto All Might's arms. They'll help stabilize you. You won't burn through your time limit. Go all out. All Might's expression softened. You've become a true hero. Rest now. Then he turned. Now then. You face me. The battle shook the USJ. Blow after blow, All Might pushed the Nomu to its limits. Finally, with a roar, he sent it flying into the sky. Shigaraki and Kurogyri, wounded, escaped. Other heroes and medics arrived. Izuku was rushed to the UA medical wing. But even as he drifted to sleep, one thought burned in his mind. This is only the beginning. The sterile scent of antiseptic lingered in the UA infirmary as Izuku Midoriya stirred, groaning softly from the pain radiating through his ribs. Bandaged heavily and connected to monitors, he blinked through the haze until Recovery Girl stood over him with a stern frown and her arms crossed. "You're lucky, young man," she scolded, sighing. "If All Might hadn't shown up when he did, you could have been in serious trouble." Izuku scratched his head sheepishly, wincing at the movement. "Might have gone a bit far." "A bit?" she huffed. "You practically rewrote the book on overdoing it." Again. The door burst open suddenly, and All Might, still in his buff form, stepped inside, looking uncharacteristically serious. "Young Midoriya, I need to speak with you. Something peculiar happened during the battle." Recovery Girl raised an eyebrow as the symbol of peace continued. "When you gave me the rings before the fight, I felt something shift. My skinny form vanished. I haven't been able to change back since." Recovery Girl's mouth fell open. "Get on the bed. I'm running a full panel and MRI." Within minutes, scans and diagnostics lit up the screens, and Recovery Girl gasped. "Impossible. These rings, Izuku, they're healing his organs. They're stopping the deterioration one for all causes to his body. Not reversing it, but halting it. Like a dam." Izuku blinked, stunned. That shouldn't be possible. They came from someone named Shang-Chi. They're ancient. I don't even know what they're made of." Recovery Girl adjusted her glasses and muttered, "Whatever they're made of, they're not from Earth. The MRI couldn't even scan them." All Might looked down at the rings on his hands in awe. "My time limit, it's still at 3 hours. But if this continues, I could last a little longer." Izuku nodded, determined. "Then keep them. For 2 weeks. Let them heal you. We need you to last." All Might hesitated, but Recovery Girl backed the decision. "Midoriya's right. Give it 2 weeks. Then we reassess." UA closed its doors for a few days, allowing the trauma of the USJ attack to settle. When classes resumed, a still bandaged Aizawa stood at the front of Class 1A with a full body cast and an indifferent expression. "In 2 weeks, we'll be holding the UA Sports Festival. Prepare yourselves," he said flatly. "Also, you're getting a new classmate." Whispers broke out. "She's filling the spot left open after I expelled that grape-haired pervert." No one protested. The room was silent. A girl stepped in and bowed deeply. "I am Yui Kodai. I transferred from Class 1B. I'll prove I deserve to be here." She took her seat, quiet and composed. After class, the door to 1A slid open to reveal a sea of students from other classes crowding the hallway. "So this is 1A, the class that got attacked by villains," someone sneered. "Looks like a bunch of egoists," another muttered. A purple-haired boy stepped forward. "Name's Hitoshi Shinso. I didn't make it into the hero course, but I will. Maybe I'll take your spot," he said, eyeing Yui coldly. Izuku stepped between them, calm but firm. "If you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." The rest of 1A stepped forward in unity, glaring defensively. Izuku offered his hand. Class 1B got an opening. "Prove yourself and you'll be a hero too. Don't tear others down to climb up." Shinso scoffed but turned and walked away. The tension broke, and the students dispersed. Later, Izuku contacted All Might. They met in his office, both heavy with thoughts. All Might, the gnome. It had multiple quirks. Like more than one. All Might's face darkened. That confirms a terrifying suspicion. Let me tell you a story. About the origin of One for All. And its opposite. All for One. As the tale unraveled, Izuku sat silently, absorbing the terrible truth. The villain he had faced wasn't just a madman. It was a symptom of something far older and more powerful. "The tendrils?" Izuku finally asked. What were they? All Might shook his head. I don't know. But I believe they are a manifestation of one for all. You need to train it. Control it. Izuku bowed. I will. I won't let you, or anyone. As All Might nodded and dismissed him, Izuku walked through the halls of Yue, quiet but resolved. He had seen the depths of villainy. He had felt the weight of a legacy far bigger than himself. But he had also seen unity, hope, and the beginnings of something new inside him. The tendrils, the rings, the power of one for all, they were all his now. He just had to master them. The castle ruins sat silent under a gray sky, ancient stone swallowed slowly by time and nature. Izuku Midoriya stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes narrowed as wind rippled through his green training hoodie. Moss and grass crawled over the broken remnants of walls and towers, crumbling battlements that once might have protected something important. Now they sheltered only memory and purpose. Yondu, the loyal creature that had become part of Izuku's strange new family, walked beside him. He sniffed the air, ears perked and alert, before circling and laying down under a stone arch half consumed by ivy. Izuku stepped forward slowly, placing his pack down beside the flat stone he chose for his meditation. He took a seat, crossing his legs, spine straight. Eyes closed. He took a deep breath. I need to go back. To that place. Vestige world silence. And then weightlessness. His senses drifted into void, his body fading. Izuku opened his eyes, or at least he thought he did, only to see nothing but shadows, and that now familiar glowing mist. Tendrils of green and gold danced across the darkness like auroras trapped in a dream. He floated again, suspended. Just like the first time. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Then, a shape appeared. Bright, confident, pulsing with energy like a raging storm held barely in check. You made it back, kid. The voice cracked like thunder and laughed like rolling drums. A man materialized from the fog, muscular, mohawked, arms crossed. Banjo, the fifth user of One for All. Don't try to speak yet, Banjo said, seeing Izuku twitch. You're still tethered too tight to the physical world. That'll change with training. Izuku wanted to nod. Couldn't. Banjo floated closer. That thing you pulled out at the USJ. The black tendrils. That was my quirk. Black Whip. The fog pulsed as images formed around them. Izuku, thrashing inside the USJ, black cords lashing in every direction, wild and uncontrolled. Black Whip's a quirk of control. Of emotion. The stronger your will, the stronger it grows. But the wrong emotion. You lose it. Banjo pointed to his head. Train this. Not just your muscles. Your mind's what keeps Black Whip tamed. Think of it like using a bullwhip made of lightning. Cool but real messy unless you're focused. Another ripple echoed through the void. Then a voice spoke. Enough, Banjo. Not just light, presence. A regal figure emerged, the fog parting like water. Long windswept hair. Calm eyes. A sense of history embedded in every step he took. Izuku recognized him instantly. The first user. He drifted forward slowly. You have done well, Izuku Midoriya. But the journey ahead has become more dangerous. More complex than I ever imagined. He raised a hand. Behind him, green fire coalesced into a set of glowing rings. These, he said, were always thought to be myth. The 10 rings. Older than our quirks. Older than me. Izuku's heart thudded. Yet they respond to you. And because of them, you have accelerated the singularity of One for All. The quirks inside this power will awaken faster. But so too will the cost. Izuku watched, still frozen, as the fire reshaped into silhouettes of the other users behind the first. Each quirk is a piece of us. And now you must carry all of us. In mind. In body. In spirit. If any of those fail, you will struggle. The first user stepped forward. Train. Focus. Grow. We will meet again, when you are ready. He reached out, and tapped Izuku's forehead with a glowing finger. Light exploded. Back to the real world. Izuku's eyes snapped open. Gwa, he gasped. Yondu, startled, jumped onto his lap and barked happily, liking his face. Izuku laughed weakly, grabbing Yondu and hugging him tightly. I know what I have to do now, he whispered. Montage. 2 weeks of training. Cue upbeat music with emotional undertones. Izuku training in the forest near the castle ruins. Black Whip flying out wildly at first, then slowly gaining control. Yondu chasing the WHP like a child chasing a ribbon. Izuku meditating daily, focusing his mind, balancing body and breath. Practicing small movements with Black Whip, catching pebbles, swinging branches, moving leaves in patterns. Slowly, he starts weaving the WHPS into spirals and shields. Meanwhile, Recovery Girl and All Might's progress, MRI scans show All Might's organs mending. Liver, heart, and lungs showing near full repair. His posture improves. He looks younger, healthier. He remarks how he can breathe easier, sleep longer. Even his appetite returned. Izuku visits often. They talk over tea. All Might admits how grateful he is for the extra time. Izuku never lets his guard down. Keeps training. Day before the sports festival, Recovery Girl runs final tests. She gasps at the MRI results. Healed. Almost entirely. But give it a day. Let the tissues stabilize. We don't want shock when you remove the rings. All Might touches his stomach, surprised. His once deep scar is still there, but no longer twisted and inflamed. You have no idea what you've given me, Midoriya. Izuku smiles. I just gave them time. You gave me everything else. They agree. All Might will return the rings an hour before the festival. Nightfall. Izuku walks home under golden dusk light. His heart races in anticipation. The sports festival is tomorrow. He enters his apartment, greeted by Eri and Yondu. She runs up and hugs him, Yondu wagging behind. Izuku lifts her with a grin. He sets her down gently, and they begin their quiet evening. He lies in bed later, eyes staring at the ceiling. What will tomorrow bring? And more quietly, what kind of hero am I becoming? The day had finally arrived. The UA Sports Festival, a proving ground for first-year students to show the world what they were made of. All Might sat on the examination table, his muscular form still intimidating even in a relaxed state. Recovery Girl reviewed the latest scans, humming in approval. Well, she said, looking up at both All Might and Izuku, who stood anxiously nearby. His vitals are steady. The healing is complete, and the ring's support worked like a charm. Izuku let out a deep breath he didn't know he was holding. So, he's really healed. All Might grinned, his usual charisma glowing bright. Yes, young Midoriya. I feel better than I have in years. Those rings of yours are miraculous. But now, it's time for me to return them to their rightful bearer. All Might unclasped the rings from his arms. They hovered silently for a moment, glowing faintly. With a gesture, he extended them toward Izuku. The moment the rings touched Izuku's skin, they hummed with familiarity, zipping up to orbit his arms. I don't know what the future holds, All Might said, placing a firm hand on Izuku's shoulder, but with you carrying both one for all and those rings. I believe in it. I believe in you. Izuku looked up, blinking rapidly. Thank you. For everything. All Might pulled him into a hug, firm and warm. Now go show them what a hero looks like. The stands were packed with civilians, pro-heroes, and scouts from hero agencies. The noise was deafening, the excitement palpable. Class 1A stood gathered behind the curtain. President Mick's voice blared across the arena. And now, our students. First up, a speech from Class 1A representative, Izuku Midoriya. The students behind Izuku murmured they had all voted for Izuku after the alarm incident, recognizing his leadership. Izuku stepped forward, the spotlight bathing him in white. The crowd hushed. Good morning, Izuku began, voice steady and firm. I'm Izuku Midoriya from Class 1A. I know some of you expected someone else to be up here, but I'd like to share something important with you today. He took a breath, looking out at the sea of faces. I was born a step behind. Everyone around me awakened their quirks by the time they were 4. But me, mine didn't show up. I was told I was quirkless. I was told I could never be a hero. But I didn't give up. I trained, I studied, I bled and sweat and cried to catch up. And at 13, my quirk finally awakened. I kept working to stand on the same step as everyone else. The crowd quieted further, hanging on his words. I know there are students here today who feel overlooked, ignored. You were told you couldn't make it into the hero course. You were told your dreams were out of reach. But I want to say this, you are not toys. You are not background characters. You are challengers. You matter. He looked down briefly, then back up with fire in his eyes. I will give it everything I have today. Not to prove I'm better, but to show that anyone can rise above what the world expects of them. We will all go beyond. Plus ultra. The stadium exploded in cheers. All right, everyone. Present Mike announced. First round, the obstacle course. Students gathered at the starting line. Izuku cracked his neck and arms. The rings glowed around him, gently humming. He could feel them pulsing with energy. He wouldn't reveal Black Whip yet. Too early. Too dangerous. The starting cannon boomed. Izuku surged forward, activating full cowling at 15% instantly. The rings accelerated around him, forming propulsion arcs behind his elbows. As he sprinted ahead, he fired 2 rings forward, embedding them into a wall before swinging himself around the first tight corner. Izuku Midoriya's fast. Kirishima shouted. He's using those rings like Spider-Man, Kaminari added. The first challenge came into view, the giant robots from the entrance exam. They lumbered forward, crashing through debris. Izuku launched a ring at one of their heads, using it as a footstool midair. Another ring propelled him diagonally through the air like a pinball. He flew between 2 robots, landing ahead of everyone. Behind him, Todoroki froze the ground while Bakugo blasted his way through, but Izuku was already tackling the next challenge, the pitfall ravine. Without hesitation, Izuku threw a ring to the other side. It clamped onto the ground like a grappling hook. Using a combination of full cowling and propulsion, he flung himself across the gap in one soaring leap. He landed, rolling expertly, and sprinted forward. The final challenge, the minefield. Careful, Midoriya, he muttered to himself. Gotta be smart. He bent low, using the rings to gently hover above the mines. Rather than stepping, he glided. As he passed, he threw rings backward to detonate some mines behind him, creating dust cover. Todoroki and Bakugo were catching up. No you don't, Izuku muttered. He pulled all 10 rings close, spun them around himself in a vortex, and released them all outward like a shockwave. The resulting burst of force sent him flying ahead while the others stumbled behind from the blast. He sailed over the final stretch, his rings orbiting in tight synchronization. One final burst of energy rocketed him past the finish line. Present Mike nearly dropped his mic, and the winner, by miles and miles, is Izuku Midoriya. The crowd roared. Izuku breathed, arms on his knees, rings gently orbiting again. He turned to look back at the track. The others were just now getting through the minefield. He smiled. Today, he didn't just catch up. He led. The crowd thundered with excitement as the obstacle course concluded. Izuku Midoriya stood tall atop the winner's platform, his green eyes shimmering with determination. His body hummed with the combined power of One for All and the 10 mysterious rings that now floated back into place on his arms. With a single breath, he calmed his body. He couldn't celebrate yet, the real test was just beginning. Midnight's voice echoed through the arena. Congratulations to the top 42 contestants. Now we move to the second round, the cavalry battle. The students stood on edge. But this isn't any ordinary cavalry battle, Midnight purred. Each of you has been assigned a point value based on your placement in the obstacle course. And our number 1 spot. A massive screen blinked to life, showing Izuku Midoriya at the top. 10 million points. The stadium roared. Izuku exhaled slowly. Of course, he muttered. Bakugo gritted his. That nerd just made himself a target. Ida looked at Izuku with quiet worry. Todoroki narrowed his gaze. You just painted a target on your back, Todoroki thought. Midnight gave the students 15 minutes to form teams. Instantly, the crowd erupted into chaotic energy. Izuku took a deep breath and looked around. He needed smart, balanced allies. Before he even asked, Uraraka walked up with a smile. You know I'm in. You gave that speech, so now you gotta win. Thanks, Uraraka. Tsuyu walked over next. Ribbit, you saved me. Hin. I want in too. Before Izuku could reply, Mei Hatsum from the support course shoved a gadget-covered arm into their circle. Hiya. I saw you in the first event. You're incredible. Let me use you as a billboard for my inventions. Izuku blinked. Great. I'll make you fly. Just keep us safe. Before he knew it, his team was complete. Uraraka as the rider with weight nullification, Tsuyu with mobility and support, Mei Hatsum providing gear and engineering gadgets to enhance their defenses, and Izuku as the core power and strategist. It was a strange mix, but he liked it. The cavalry battle begins. 42 students split into 11 teams. The countdown began. The stands held their breath. Chaos. Absolute chaos. The moment the buzzer rang, teams sprinted, leapt, or launched themselves toward Izuku's squad. The 10 million point target burned above his head like a lighthouse in a storm. Izuku activated full cowling at 20%. Energy surged through his limbs. The rings ignited with a pale gold hue. All right team, strategy alpha. Uraraka nullified gravity on the group as Mei activated thrusters on her back-mounted stabilizers. The entire team soared skyward, avoiding the first wave of challengers. Izuku launched 2 rings downward. They embedded into the arena floor and pulsed. Tsuyu. Swing. Tsuyu extended her tongue and used the embedded rings as pivot points, spinning the group horizontally in midair to avoid a swipe from Team Bakugo. Bakugo missed but followed, his hands crackling with energy. Deku, get back here. Izuku spun another ring behind them. It exploded in midair with a concussive blast that pushed Bakugo's group off balance. Team Todoroki entered next, ice forming under their feet as Todoroki glided across an ever-growing glacier. Your team's impressive, Todoroki said, launching a column of ice toward Izuku. Izuku slammed 2 rings together in front of him, creating a shockwave that shattered the ice before it could touch them. Mei whooped in excitement. You are the perfect test subject. More teams came at them. Team Shinso attempted a sneak flank. Izuku deflected them with a ring barrage, spinning them back. SWH to beta formation. Uraraka, remove gravity. Tsuyu, disengage. Mei, stabilize. The team rose higher. Izuku threw a ring to the center of the arena and gripped it with 2 more. It created a rotating, orbiting pattern he could swing from like a grappling hook. He launched the group toward the north side of the arena, passing 3 teams in a blur. Midnight's voice boomed, only 5 minutes remaining. Izuku knew they had to survive just a little longer. He called out, time to defend. Mei, deploy shield bubble. Mei clicked a button, and a protective dome of energy formed around them for 30 seconds. It absorbed several incoming attacks. Todoroki tried again, this time with fire. Izuku's rings spun in rapid sequence. He released 3 in a spiral formation. They hit Todoroki's fire head-on and detonated midair, creating a smoke shield around them. The clock ticked. 2 o'clock minutes remaining. More teams were eliminated as others fought. Class 1B was gunning for points from everyone. Shinso made one last attempt with brainwashed students trying to talk to Uraraka and Hatsum. But Izuku had trained them. Don't respond, he barked. The team held strong. 1 minute left. Bakugo screamed with frustration, his hair wild, his team battered. He launched himself one last time. Izuku gritted his teeth. We end this now. No. Mei tossed up a specialized magnetizer drone. Izuku charged a ring with full cowling at 45%, threw it, and hit the drone. The drone esiki in every bit of metallic debris from the arena, creating a swirling mass of scrap. Bakugo flew right into it. He was knocked back. Todoroki tried to freeze them midair. Izuku used his last move. 2 rings spun behind their team and shot forward, carving a circle of energy beneath them. The propulsion lifted them higher than anyone else. 0, the arena gasped. 0, teams scrambled, but no one could reach them now. 0 buzz. Team Midoriya wins. The stadium erupted. The crowd chanted. Izuku, arms lifted, stood proud with his teammates. Uraraka cheered, Tsuyu smiled softly, and Mei was already scribbling notes. The rings spun down and hummed softly on Izuku's arms.